Hey, it's Hugh Hewitt, and when I want to know what's going on with the Cavs, the Browns, and the Tribe, I tune into Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Hey guys, J-Rocc here from the Sports Fix, and we always talking about using our platform to try to help the world and the society we live in, and everywhere I go and everywhere we go, bullying is one of the problems in today's society. There's nothing worse than any person, big or small, strong or weak, adult or child, feeling picked on, pushed around, vulnerable, and victimized at the hands of a bully. Change comes one person at a time, and my good friends at No Such Thing as a Bully are working on skills and techniques and ways that we can all change and make things better for everyone. Find out more at nosuchthingasabully.com.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Catch every UFC pay-per-view live in full HD at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And indeed, welcome in. It is time, as the man said, let's get this down to get your fix. Not just a new show, a new edition. It's a new year, baby. 2016 has clicked over. We've got a brand new slate here, starting things off. Welcome in, my friends, to the Sports Fix, the first edition of the brand new year. I am Jerry Myers, J-Rocc, the big daddy on the microphone. Call me any of the above, whatever you wish. You can call me. Happy to be here once again. It's been a little bit of a break, a vacation there between the last show and this one, and it feels good to be back on the air, rocking and rolling with you guys. Welcome in. I hope that you guys had a fantastic holiday season, Christmas, New Year's, all of that wrapped into one. And speaking of season, you know what? This feels familiar. I think, was it last year, the year? I don't know. Every time we do this, it's a Browns New Year once again. My man Dan Wismar texted me this morning getting ready for the show. Said, 7-hour broadcast today. I say, well, not exactly 7 hours, just another Browns New Year. Of course, we'll talk about the tail end of their season and the destruction of the Browns franchise that began yesterday. It was a Sunday, bloody Sunday down at the lakefront yesterday on and off the field. And, I guess I'll chuckle at it, man. We're going to talk about it. Dan Wismar is going to join us. The aforementioned Dan Wismar from Everybody Hates Cleveland. He'll be with us today, and we'll start doing the thing, and we'll tear through everything that happened over the weekend. And we've got a lot more to get into. Hey, the NFL season may be over for the Browns, but the playoff season has just begun. We're just a hair over 30 days to the Super Bowl, and there's a lot of good football left to be played. I know, in Cleveland, sometimes that you've got to be over the age of 30 to know good football can be played here in Cleveland. But yes, and it can be played after the New Year's, believe it or not. And you will see that for the next few weeks. Some good stuff coming up. So we're going to talk about that. Buckeyes bowl game winners, and Joey Bosa didn't get to see as much of him as people may have wanted to before potentially coming here perhaps to the Browns. At least that's in a lot of people's hopes, although who knows. Browns couldn't even get that. Man, I'm going to get into it enough in a minute, but I mean, you almost have to feel at some point for them because they lost. They let the Steelers into the playoffs, and they still didn't get the number one pick in the draft. Like, that's the kick in the ass. You know, they lost, and they let the Steelers in the playoffs, and it still wasn't bad enough to be the number one pick in the draft. On a tiebreaker, they end up number two. They can't lose for winning, I swear, man. But anyways, we're going to talk. And Jimmy Haslam's ass backwards press conference last night. Let me tell you something, man. They are full of those cliches directionally. Well, the arrow was pointing directionally conflicting to what we prefer to be in our alignment of our organizational access. Get out of here, man. Anyways, we're going to get into all that. As you know, we're going to talk about it. We've got a ton of things to get into. Dan's with us. We're talking Browns. We're talking Buckeyes, NFL playoffs, Indians, Cavaliers, so much more, guys. So let's do the thing. Welcome in to the Sports Fix. 2016 is upon us. As I said, I'm your host, J-Rocc, Jerry Myers, the Big Daddy, on the microphone. This is the Sports Fix. Welcome in, however you're joining us, live across the Sports Fix radio network. Maybe you're listening on TuneIn's radio and mobile app worldwide, on Spreaker, on Mixler, their respective digital and mobile apps. Perhaps you're enjoying the show live on our home base, as so many of you do, thesportsfix.net. Bookmark it if you haven't. All great places to enjoy the show. I see the phones already going here. We're going to get to that momentarily, guys, but thank you so much for joining us. However you're listening to the show, welcome in, you guys. And as I said, can't forget about the guys that are listening on digital delay, thousands of you around the world. Thanks to you, and Happy New Year around the world, listening on sites on digital delay 24/7 like iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on SoundCloud, on all the different places that you guys download, feed, subscribe, do the whole Sports Fix thing. Thank you guys for doing it with us. A whole nother year in the books and another one to go. And yes, Charles Morgan, I just saw the chat out of the corner of my eye. What a way to kick off the new year. Stipe, my man, Stipe Miocic. Finally, brother, he didn't just KO the pit bull the other day, that he ran up to Dana White and said, take my title shot again. Tell me I'm not getting a title shot. It'll be you in this octagon next. Dana White said, that man scared me. I had no choice but to give him his title shot. So in 2016, Cleveland has a shot at the heavyweight championship of the world, and my man Stipe is going to go finish it off. They held him back once a couple of months ago. They screwed him over on TV, but no more. He, 54 seconds the other day? Man, holler out to my boy Stipe. That was awesome. We're going to get into all of that, guys. Anyways, as I said, getting your fix, do it. Phones, 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, email, your thoughts on the Browns. Who's coming next? Who do you want? I'll just go tell you now. If you're going to send me a name that is not currently a coordinator somewhere, potentially that's never had head coaching experience, you're probably wasting your time. I was laughing with some friends yesterday when we were talking about, we were all taking bets at what time Mike Pettin would be fired, how long he had left, and Ray Farmer as well. Turned out Ray Farmer, he was already off the clock. He was actually fired Saturday night, which I'm like, man, why did he go to the game? Because they showed him sitting in the press box at the game, and I'm like, if he was already, man, there's no way I'd have been there. And by the way, speaking of things I would have done, if I was Mike Pettin, the first thing I would have done after I got fired was sent a text message or two to Ray Farmer myself. But that's a different story for a different day. But anyways, we were sitting there taking bets on how long the regime would last yesterday and all of that. And I'll get back into that in a moment, you guys. Let me. I'm getting off track here. Let me get back to the phones, 216-539-7535. Facebook, Twitter, email. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Twitter @thesportsfixcle. Email thesportsfix@AOL.com. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Twitter @thesportsfixcle. Email thesportsfix@AOL.com. We didn't even bring up by the way, oh boy, Johnny was in Vegas Saturday night. I'll tell you what, too. He was slick this time. Finally figured out how to outsmart the media, or at least he thought he did until he got carded at the casino. But anyways, you got to figure that what my man did was had somebody. And I'm going all ADD on you right now. I'm going from one thing to the other. But you got to figure that my man just had somebody post to his Instagram from back here in Cleveland so that it geocached the location that he was back here at home. You had to think, after these things keep blowing up, that him and his people sat down and said, oh, I know what? Next time, I'll post for you back in Cleveland. And then they'll say, oh, well, there's no, because Lord knows Mary Kay Cabot can't figure out the back end of Instagram and geolocating or anything like that until somebody spells it out for her. I mean, anyways, she'll have to go find a national program that's blogging about technical stuff. And then she can retweet what they write and then read it and then learn it for herself somehow. But anyways, I'm telling you, it's going to be one of those days here, fellas, but that's what they do to you, man. That is what they do to you. Anyways, Let's get rocking and rolling. Let's get into things. 216-539-7535. Facebook, Twitter, email, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Twitter @thesportsfix, CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Quickly, before I dive into the Browns and the chicanery and all that, we've got some things to circle around and do. First things first, congratulations. Speaking of title shots, speaking of championships and all of that, Sports Fix Fantasy Football Challenge, brought to you by the Sports Fix, by Fantasy Jocks. I'll tell you what, congratulations in order. Justin Beavers, he defeated my son, little Jerry, who was in the championship game back-to-back years. Little Jerry starting to turn into the Buffalo Bills of the Sports Fix Fantasy Challenge. Back-to-back years, he has fallen short in the championship game. Yesterday, I think it was an 11-point final score. Either way, Justin Beavers, congratulations. He won the 20 pounds of gold, won the championship from the Sports Fix Fantasy Challenge. He's got it. He's been posting pictures all over. Matter of fact, it's his year in general. I personally know Justin outside of the show. He was in 4 leagues this year, 3 Super Bowls, 2 championships. So he definitely had the fantasy mojo going for himself this year. Congratulations to Justin. He won the championship this year. Who will win it next year? We'll look forward to it. The Sports Fix Fantasy Jocks Fantasy Football Challenge. Thanks again to Fantasy Jocks providing the championship trophy for this year, the belt that Justin Beavers is proudly wearing. Remember, fantasyjocks.com, America's fantasy sports superstore. Thanks to those guys again, and all of you guys. We will look forward to doing it again. Hey, soon enough, man. Before you know it, the summer will be over, and we'll be taking registrations again for fantasy football. But thanks to all of you guys for that. You know, as well, before we get into the show, thanks to you guys who came out not just Saturday night to Erie, but all year long to wrestling events across the country that you guys have joined me at. It's been really fun, 2015, getting my wrestling career going again and really watching that continue to grow. Brought some championships. Speaking of gold, brought a couple title belts back to Cleveland from Erie over the weekend. That was a lot of fun, and it's just been such a blessing and such a pleasure to be back out there. And I love being able to involve so many of you guys in this, because so many of you guys have, whether you're here, whether you're abroad, across the country, been able to interact with that. It's been a lot of fun, and I love seeing you guys out there. Love it when somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I was listening to the show the other day, and I agree about this, or I disagree about that. And I'm always amazed in these arcane little towns sometimes that I'll be in. People come in, and they're, hey, man, I'm a huge Cavs fan. I'm a this, that, and the other thing. It's great stuff, and I love it. So it's kind of a really cool way to tie in the Sports Fix audience and the pro wrestling fans around the country. And I'll tell you, speaking of around the country, 2016, ton of things to come, you guys. We're gonna have some big things going down this year, and I'm looking forward to sharing all of that with you as it goes. And we kicked it off the other day. So again, thanks to you guys for that, as well for indulging me when I do my things there and everything that we do. You guys are so good at supporting everything that we do inside and outside of the Sports Fix itself. And I just really appreciate that. And I wanted to take a minute and thank you guys for that as we start the new year. And talking about New Year's, speaking of things, this is for real. Forget joking about the Browns, because every year they do the same thing. But I'm big on perspective, especially as each year ticks off the calendar. And I talk about, like this past year, just, man, sitting back and thinking about everything that I went through just from some years you go, man, I'm glad that year was over with. Can't wait for the next one. 2015 was not one of those years for me. 2015 was one of those years that I said, man, can I put this thing in a bottle and drink some more of it next year? Because this was a really good one, but it was a blessing in so many different ways. And perspective is big. Do you guys know a year ago today what we were talking about here on the show? Stuart Scott passing away. I mean, and to this day, one of the greats. And so many times we remember things in the moment and then they fade away and they quickly move into the past. It's the cycle of life, and I understand that. But a year ago today, we weren't talking about the Browns getting rid of a coach. That's 2 years ago and 4 years ago and 6 years ago. It's like every other year with the Browns. But a year ago today, we were mourning the loss of a great man from that dastardly dastardly thing they call cancer. So just think about perspective here. And another year in the books, and here we are, you guys. So be glad to be here. I sure as hell am, and I'm glad to have you guys here with me. And I'm looking forward to another year with it, you guys. And I see Charles. By the way, Charles is funny. Charles in the chat room, my little peanut gallery over here, he had me rolling. He posted the meme this morning of Jake Taylor in the sombrero. You could totally see Manziel yesterday morning getting the phone call. It looked over and it said Cleveland Browns. Damn it, if you were going to do this on a Sunday morning, you could at least say you're from the Cowboys. You know? I mean, you could totally see it. My man, he put him on block. He just hit the block button on his cell phone. He's forwarding them right to voicemail. Speaking of block, Bruce in the chat room said I saw him post these last night. He was sending some incredibly not so nice messages to our friends down at the First Energy Stadium, the Cleveland Browns. And the first one said, "Thank you. Your message has been received by First Energy Stadium." Then everyone after that said, "Your number has been blocked by First Energy Stadium." And my man Bruce said, "At least they can block something," and that's a good one there. It's easy to take shots at them, especially when they open up their shirt and draw the bullseye for you, which is exactly what they did yesterday. We'll get into that. We're sitting here talking about championships. We're talking about playoffs. We're talking about all of these things. And now we're going to talk about the Browns because they're the opposite of any of those words right now. And yesterday could be no more the epitome of that. As we start to buckle down and get serious here, the Browns had another one of those. It was about, midway through the third quarter, and it was another one of those 8-point blowouts again where they were still within a touchdown, but it might as well have been 40 points. I mean, the way the Browns were playing and their inability to effectively get anything going offensively. They can get up and down. I mean, they can move the chunks between the 30 and the 30. They could move themselves up and down the middle of the field, but that was about it. And shot themselves in the foot, kept settling for field goals, which, by the way, and this is just me. I mean, it is what it is. Mike Pettin is unemployed today. He had a job yesterday. There's not a chance in hell that I would have sent my field goal kicker or my punter out at all yesterday. I knew I was fired if I'm Mike Pettin. The reports were out. All of that stuff was out. There's not a chance in the world I'm kicking field goals. I'm going for it on every fourth down. I'm playing my way, and I'm giving a big F you to the people that I feel, that I feel anyways helped effectively run Mike Pettin out of his job. And I know there's people out there right now that cannot stand Mike Pettin and the job that he did, and that's fine. And you are judged on the results that you do. And he's no longer the coach of the Cleveland Browns. But at one point yesterday during the game, you guys all saw it if you were watching it on TV, they put up the graphic on the screen. And they showed Mike Pettin's tenure in Cleveland split in half. The first 11 games, when they were 7-4 at that point last year. By the way, Brian Hoyer says hi from the playoffs. You can see him on the playoffs on television next weekend. So does Brandon Weeden, my good buddy. Actually, so do about a dozen coaches over the last 4 years. So do about 24 players. Have you gone around the rosters? I'm going to segue off the Browns for a second because trust me, we're going to jump right back onto them. Go around the playoffs right now and pick through every roster, and you'll find a handful of players. You'll find a coach here and there. You'll find somebody on almost every one of them that wasn't good enough in the last few years for the next reincarnation of the Cleveland Browns, for the next general manager, for the next coach, for the next whatever it is, as they continue to worry about which way the directional arrow points for their organization. Go through and watch the Pittsburgh Steelers play the Cincinnati Bengals next weekend. I don't even need to go beyond the matchup. Keep going through. Do I have to say more than Brian Hoyer and Brandon Weeden and the Houston Texans? Do I? I'm just curious. Kansas City's in the playoffs. They wanted nothing to do with Mr. Dwayne Bowe at the end of last season. Because let me say this again. I said this a year ago at this time. If Andy Reid don't want you, there's a reason. When good coaches jettison good players, that's because they're no longer good players. They're players with good reputations. But anyways, let's keep rolling through the playoffs. How about Teddy Bridgewater, the guy who you spent $150,000 on to find out that he was the best quarterback in the draft, where instead you and the homeless guy picked Johnny Manziel? How about the Seahawks? How about Seattle? Taba Rubin wasn't good enough for the Browns anymore. doing a good job up there helping that Seattle Seahawks defense, though. I'm just saying, do we need to keep going? You know, Colt McCoy's in the playoffs, right? He'll be going into the playoffs next weekend, taking on the Green Bay Packers. Colt McCoy still in the NFL, and he's in the playoffs next week. And I know he's a backup. My point is that you can go around the entire playoffs. Jabal Sheard, hey, playoffs, what the hell are those? He went to the Patriots and found out pretty quick. TJ Ward's been loving life in Denver. Go on and on. Go throughout. Hey, Bruce Arians, jamming, number 2 seed over there in the NFC. You can do this around all of these teams. All of these teams that were in and around the playoffs, made the playoffs, didn't. Same thing with coaches. Go through all the coaches, all the assistant coaches. There's tons of them all over the place on playoff teams or teams that nearly missed making the playoffs this past season. None of them superstars in their own right. None of them superstars. Let me make sure you understand my point. My point is not, oh, hey, the Browns were so stupid they let the great TJ Ward go. Absolutely not. My point is that if you add up the 1, 2, 3 players on every one of these teams, the guys that we just mentioned, you take them all and you put them all back on the same roster that they've been on 2 or 3 years ago. We're not talking about since 99. I'm talking about the last 3, 4, 5 seasons. That's a playoff roster. That's a playoff roster. That's playoff caliber coaching. That's a playoff caliber talent roster. That's what I'm talking about. And it wasn't even just stupidity. It was overturn. These weren't just guys that people said weren't good enough, because that's not totally fair to a Browns organization that doesn't need any help making themselves look bad. Their actions do it just fine. In all fairness, that's the overturn of changing your regime every year or two. These guys get washed out. New people, new systems, new rosters, and this is what you get. And it's going to happen again. Brother, it is about to happen again. We're going to talk about that. Let's get the break. Let's get Dan Wismar in on the conversation, and let's pick up right there, because Jimmy Haslam went to work yesterday, and boy, was his press conference after the firings was a thing of beauty. Was a thing of beauty. And brother, I'll start this the way I started the show. If you think that any of these big name guys that you're fantasizing, dreaming about, fooling yourselves about, if you think that is who is coming to Cleveland, you're nuts. The first 3 names that came out, Adam Gase is the one that gets people excited, although the bloom slightly off that rose a little bit with what happened in Chicago. But either way, he's on there. You've got Doug Marrone, who was, hey, guess what? He was one of the guys who interviewed 2 years ago. You're going to hear a couple more names of guys who interviewed 2 years ago. And here's the best part. They're going to hire the coach, then the general manager. The whole reason that they had to let go of Mike Pettin was because you couldn't fire Ray Farmer and then stick the new general manager with a coach that he didn't pick, except you've now made the decision to give the coach to a general manager that he didn't pick. But that's okay, because the people picking the coach is pretty classic in its own right. D. Haslam, Jimmy Haslam, and a search firm, a corporate search firm. Now, I'll give you Jed Hughes. He's helped with some NFL coaching searches. But a corporate search firm, the kind of guy you hire when you need, a new, I don't want to say receptionist, because you don't go headhunting at that level. But you know where I'm going. When you're talking about making corporate hires, you go get you a headhunter. You say, hey, I need some new people in the sales department. You go get a headhunter. You say, hey, I need a new program director for my radio station. You go get a headhunter. I don't know about corporate headhunters helping you fill those football positions. But hey, that's the search firm that's going to decide. From now on, it doesn't matter. The general manager is simply going to be a guy running the scout team and helping pick the guys that are looking at draft pick, things like that, because coaching, well, now they've reorganized the flow chart. They've reorganized it, because if you remember 2 years ago when they fired Chud, and when they hacked out Banner and Lombardi and made all the changes, it was because the organizational structure was cumbersome and they needed to streamline it to something that worked much better. Well, apparently the new one was cumbersome too, because they're streamlining it again. Now, the coach bypasses the general manager. And this is a direct function of the dysfunction between Ray Farmer and Mike Pettin and all of that was going on. And brother Alex Shiner was as big a piece of that as anything else. And I find it interesting, by the way, side note, that Alex Shiner is in no way a part of these coaching searches and general manager searches, and he was the key man in the last search. If you remember, it was him and Jimmy. That was the key man, and he is not a part of these searches. I think Jimmy's realizing real quick. Well, maybe not, because this press conference tells me that Jimmy isn't realizing nothing except the profits that he makes from running this miserably inept football team. And here that's right, Bruce, haven't we seen this movie before? Here we go again, and we're going to stand in front of the media and tell them how we're going to get it right this time. We're going to turn over every rock. We're going to find the right guy with the right toughness. We think we've got it. And although he was smart enough this time to tell people, hey, we ain't turning this around tomorrow. This is going to take several more years. Just another way of saying, hey, that's okay. We just jacked up your ticket prices 30% last year, and you'll pay that for the next 3 years, hoping that we get better until we do this all over again. But anyways, so now the new organizational structure, the head coach doesn't have to answer to the general manager. The head coach is now going to go directly answering to Jimmy Haslam. So Jimmy Haslam will now be hands-on with the head coach. It's so awesome. That's the new organizational structure. Meanwhile, the general manager will in effect strictly be a player personnel guy. He will sign guys and he will draft guys. But he will not be in charge of football operations, because we've now split that off. And Sashi Brown, basically he's an analytics guy. He's a Moneyball guy, if that's the term that you're better with. He's that guy. He's that kind of guy. He's the salary cap guy for the Browns. He will now step into Ray Farmer's position, and he will be the guy that runs the football operations department. And I thought Dan Wismar, who joins us next, had a very interesting tweet yesterday. For those of you that don't know, Sashi Brown's background outside of football, he was a Baltimore area lawyer for a long time, part of business transactions. And check this out. One of his business transactions is he was one of the main negotiators, and that is his strong point, is negotiations. Apparently, he wasn't very good at that between Farmer and Pettin, but maybe he can help out with the new coaches. But anyways, one of his claims to fame as a lawyer was he helped the deal that transferred the Ravens from Art Modell to Stephen Biscotti when Art Modell bankrupted a second NFL franchise and had to sell it completely to end things over there in Baltimore for the Modell family and officially run them out of the NFL. So that's where we're at. And I'm going to stop right there and get you some news and get Dan Wismar in on the conversation. And we're loaded for bear. We're going to lock and load and see what happens next, man. We'll talk about all of this. Bloody Sunday on the lakefront yesterday. And now we'll pick through the aftermath. It's not pretty, and it's not going to get pretty, but you're going to hear a whole bunch of the same crap that you hear every couple of years around this time. The directional arrow. The directional arrow on this baby is pointing up, and we'll be back with Dan Wismar after the news next. Don't go anywhere. Right here on the Sports Fix. Like Tony Soprano put a hit out on those guys, man. Just boom, surgical. 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Mike Pettin walks in. 7:03. Mike Pettin walks out.
From above, Mr. Dwayne Love. I woke up this morning and everything was going on. I have it in my head, going take off, thinking like a bell from my head down to my toe, like a horse trying to radio with something that you know.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a bison burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
When it comes to Cleveland sports, we go from
Can't touch this.
to.
I can't watch this.
So listen to The Fix. It's easier on the eyes.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go, fish dad!
Oh, come on. This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize. I mean, a really real prize. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's Fantasy Sports Superstore, fantasyjocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picosa. He's the second winningest coach in Giants history, and Tom Coughlin has won 2 Super Bowls in his 12 seasons in New York. Giants co-owners John Mara and Steve Tisch are scheduled to meet today to discuss Coughlin's future. There is widespread speculation that Coughlin, who is 69 years old, won't return after the Giants failed to make the playoffs for a 4th straight year. ESPN's Adam Schefter's reporting an MRI revealed a sprain but no fractures in the right ankle of Patriots quarterback Tom Brady, so he's expected to be ready for New England's playoff opener January 16th. Peyton Manning, who missed 7 games with a torn plantar fascia before coming off the bench yesterday, is expected to start for Denver in its playoff opener January 17th. During Today on Mike and Mike, ESPN's Louis Riddick said he thinks Manning can remain healthy enough to play.
He has to play 2 games. He has to play a divisional round. He has to get to the championship game. And then maybe get to the Super Bowl. I'm hoping after all this time that they've got him right to where he can last 2 games. Especially, again, if you're going to drop him back 30, 40 times, have him take some shots like the one big shot he took yesterday, forget it.
The Broncos, with the win yesterday, moved past New England to secure the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Want an easy way to see if you could save money on car insurance? Geico gives you 3. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. Go online to geico.com or stop by the Geico office nearest you. 3 ways you could save 15% or more.
Now, back to the Sports Fix. Your choice for intelligent talk.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix. J-Rocc back with you here. Dan Wismar is going to join me in just a moment. Thanks for all of you that have joined us, or if you're just tuning in now, welcome back in, rocking and rolling. And we were all over the place. That first segment had a lot to get back into as we hit the ground running in 2016. And I'll tell you what, It might be playing in the background, but they're at least no longer questioning, should I stay or should I go anywhere near Berea? Everybody will be going, and it will be do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just, I should be wrong. I correct myself. They'll collect money for quite some time to come. That's the one thing you do when you coach around these parts is you collect money. I think I saw yesterday that with Mike Pettin fired, that since 2001, I want to say the Browns are on the hook for like $70 million in head coach money. 60, 70, it's up there. It's in that area. I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize, but it doesn't matter. So what if it's 50, 60, 70? The point's the same either way. That is ridiculous. Since 2001. I mean, I think that's an Indians payroll. Hell, the Dolans would love to have that money right now, man. That right there is 3/4 of the Indians' payroll, and they're still getting it. I still laugh that Chud came back and was still collecting the paycheck from when he was here before. They just merged the checks together. He just came in and said, no, same direct deposit. Just keep on sending the checks, man. That is amazing. Mike Holmgren's still getting paid. I mean, I'm telling you, I think Butch Davis is actually still collecting checks. Some guy named George Kikinis is somewhere, feet in the sand somewhere, collecting checks from the Browns. You ask who? I say, hey, guess what? You know who George Kokinis was? That was what happened the last time you let the head coach pick his own general manager. You got that situation there. So there's always that to look forward to. Browns fans, do not in any shape or form engage in the term it can't get worse at this stage in the day, because it can, and it probably will. Welcome back into the Sports Fix, and we're going to talk about all of that. There is no sunshine. There is no sunshine. I would say the sunshine is in the fact that you got 2 of the top 32 picks in the draft, but we all know how that goes, too. We don't know who the hell's going to be picking them. It looks like the lawyer from Baltimore is going to be picking the drafts, man. And I saw one of the listeners that I talk with from time to time on Facebook. She had me rolling earlier this morning. She said during the game, one of her friends said, hey, you know how when you do your fantasy football, if you can't be there for the draft, you just click auto pick and you let ESPN just auto pick the team. There's times that auto pick teams win the championship. There's times that they go 0-16. I'm guessing the odds can't be much worse if the Browns just put the draft on auto pick. I mean, seriously, how much worse could it be? You know how you see how, like, what was it? Was it Deadspin that lost their Hall of Fame vote a couple of years ago when they gave it to the fans and they let the fans, like, decide who they were going to vote for? Well, what if the Browns did that for the draft? What if the Browns allowed their fans to draft instead of them one year? I know this would never happen, but could you imagine if that was it? Like, you took the poll and, you know, they added up all the Twitter and the votes, and every round they picked whoever the internet decided the Browns would be drafting next. I don't know that it would be any better, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be any worse than what they've done. I'd be willing to bet that we'd have a better quarterback. We'd at least, if nothing else, have Odell Beckham or Kelvin Benjamin or Sammy. There'd be one wide receiver that could catch the ball on this team. I guarantee you that we'd have shot as good a percentage as Ray Farmer did. So anyways, let's do all that. Guys, you keep it going. Facebook, Twitter, email, facebook.com/thesportsfix, Twitter @thesportsfix, CLE, email, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Can't call on the phones because that's where my man Dan Wismar is, and I'm going to pull him up now. Dan from Everybody Hates Cleveland, welcome in 2016. Happy New Year. Welcome to the Sports Fix. Welcome back, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, Jerry. Happy New Year to you. I got one quick little item to ask you about, and a just related story from yesterday in the Browns game.
Let's roll.
My wife is a real loyal Browns fan. She has missed one Browns home game since 1999. That gives you any idea. 17 years, she's missed one home game. This weekend, she was sick. We had some relatives in, bug going around. She was not in a good way. She decided, and she's got to be really sick to miss a Browns game, as you might admit. So why don't you try to find somebody else to go? I'm really not up to it.
Are you still looking?
I made 10 phone calls, Jerry, to try to get my friends to take a free ticket, a $95 ticket for free to go watch the Browns and the Steelers. Couldn't get a bite. My wife sucked it up, put on her heavy clothes, trudged down to the lakefront with me, and sat there through the game with me. So I just wanted to let you know that that's what we're up against as season ticket holders, to try to get excited about a football game. And so I got to ask you, I later on I'm thinking I should have called Jerry. You know, could I have gotten you to go down to the lakefront with me and sit in my seat in the second row in the dog pound end zone? I'm not in the pound, but I'm on the side of the end zone. To go to the game with me yesterday, would you have gone with me?
Okay, I'll be totally honest about that. And the reason that I say yes is because you and I have never hung out. So
that's right.
Specifically because you and I have never had the occasion to do that before, I would have sucked it up to hang out with you and go make fun of the Browns for a couple of hours. I would have done that. But
well, darn it, I wish I'd have thought of you then, because I was running through my contacts and calling people, and mostly
you're calling people that know you. You're calling people that talk to you all the time, because had anybody else in my life asked me to go, unless it was some long-lost relative that I've never hung out with before, or some other mystery radio person that I've never really hung out with before, no, I would not have went. Nobody that I actually know could have gotten me to go, because that would have just been a waste of time. I would have went for the function of hanging out with you, but other than that, no.
That's very nice of you to say. And I would have enjoyed it too, and I was kicking myself later for not thinking about you.
But I'd have never went for the game. You can bet that. So if that's the purpose of asking me, then no, you would have been 0-for-11, because I wouldn't have went for that purpose either, to actually watch that game. That thing was miserable.
As it turns out, as you mentioned, there's not a lot to talk about the football game. So all the action came later, when Cleveland all of a sudden found out who the hell Sashi Brown is. I got to tell you, I have no objection whatsoever to the firing of Mike Pettin and Mike Farmer.
I know.
Okay. What makes me nuts is sitting there listening to this press conference where Jimmy Haslam lays out his loony structure in advance of interviewing a soul. Even if you have cooked up this half-baked structure where, the coach is going to report directly to the owner and the general manager, who's not really a general manager because he doesn't have roster responsibility, is going to report to the 38-year-old Harvard lawyer who does have roster responsibility, who's never coached or played football. Even if that's what you cooked up in your head, why in the world would you announce it to the world before you've ever interviewed a single candidate? And draw the media questions and obviously the skepticism of fans and everyone. And this is going to be the subject of widespread mockery, I'm sure, across the country as soon as the word filters through to the national media, just what Jimmy Haslam has in mind for his structure. Why would you announce it when hopefully a good, decent head coaching candidate or general manager candidate might come in, tell you you're crazy, and that there's no way that that's ever going to work? And if you change your mind and set it up this way, then I might be interested in running the Cleveland Browns organization. But no, the whole structure of it is. My question for Jimmy, Jerry, is what successful NFL franchise are you emulating here with this structural plan, Jimmy? You've had a lot of time to think about it, to learn lessons, to see how you screwed up the last two times, and hopefully emulate some winning NFL organizations. Which ones exactly are they that have the coach reporting directly to the owner and the general manager not responsible for picking the players?
You know what? He started to go that way during the press conference yesterday. I'm glad you brought that point up, because he literally backtalked himself out of the same point that you just made, because he started talking about the how the structured, the good organizations do it, and he literally said, but they're all different, and everybody has a different way of, instantly it went from previously the good organizations do it one way and everybody else does it another way, and we want to try to copy them. Yesterday, as he started, I'm going to pull it up so I can read the exact line, but basically That's what he said. He started to say, you look at the good organizations, you look at New England, Green Bay, Seattle, they're all organized differently, yet they've all been very successful. Structure is not as important as having the right people in the right place and everyone knowing their roles. To me, this is a blatant reaction to how screwed up things were before and how bad your general manager was at controlling things in this organization, because Mike Pettin ended up having too much of everything on his plate. Whether you like him, dislike him, whatever. This year, he was the only man taking the shots for everything. I mean, he really was a man with no country as far as I'm concerned, Mike Pettin. And I think that's directly what Haslam's talking about. So now he thinks that by bypassing the general manager, now the coach doesn't even have to go into the room and talk to the general manager. If they don't like each other, that's okay. He can just come talk to me, because a relationship where both coach and general manager are going behind each other's back and talking about each other to the owner, that's a very conducive for success environment right there. This is amazing. I watched him back talk right out of what you said about how the great team, because somebody brought that up and said, well, what other NFL teams have used a similar structure, Jimmy? And that's when he goes, well, they're all different. I mean, it's really not about the actual structure. It's about the guys that you get. Well, even if that's the case, Jimmy, newsflash, you're about to interview a lower caliber of candidates than what you did 2 years ago. And if you didn't guarantee yourself that by firing everybody the way you did yesterday so quickly, you did it with your press conference afterwards. That's my opinion. And here was my thing. And I know you and I, for the most, look, I get the Pettin stuff. I really, for consistency, wanted him to stay. I wanted you to replace the general manager, tighten up his coaching staff, get a better grip, keep the doggone guy in place if you didn't have anybody better already set up. The minute Jimmy opened his mouth, I realized that he let Mike Pettin go without having anybody better to set him up. And here we go with Doug Marrone coming back for round 2. Here we go with Adam Gase coming around for interview round 2. You're going to hear all of these coordinators that you have never heard of because they're the only ones that are coming here to coach.
Well, that is right. And your key point you made there is that you automatically, by definition, have lowered your standards, have lowered your sights in terms of the qualifications of the person that you're going to be able to hire.
Yep.
You're going to hire someone called a general manager. I said this yesterday on Twitter that, you really shouldn't call it a general manager because that's not what it is. It's a misnomer in NFL terms.
He's a player personnel guy. That's all he is.
A player personnel director. That's exactly right. That's someone who's going to do your scouting evaluation, supervise your scouting staff, and hopefully maybe they'll find somebody that scouts some teams other than the Pac-12.
But it's the same scouting staff.
Years.
I mean, think about that. Sashi Brown is taking over Ray Farmer's team. We're not replacing the whole team. We're just going to have a different guy run the scouting department.
Yeah, well, and whether Sashi Brown runs directly, turns out to be managing the scouting department is really sort of, not the point. The point is you're going to be lowering your sights for a general manager. There are plenty of great candidates for NFL general manager jobs around, and there's actually fewer teams looking for general managers than there are
head coaches.
Looking for head coaches.
Yep.
But what self-respecting general manager will come to Cleveland when it's already been announced that he won't have job one of a general manager, which is roster responsibility?
Like, that's the thing, Dan. If you're trying to get Elliott Wolf, if you're trying to get any of these guys that are the guys that really can come in and be, get Dimitroff to leave Atlanta or whatever, get these guys to come do what they do here. There's guys that I believe you give that control to. Who in the hell is coming here to be the figurehead guy to help run the scout team and to help turn in the card on draft day, because you now clearly realize that you don't even have the final vote? Sashi Brown, Jimmy Haslam spelled that out specifically yesterday. Sashi Brown will be in charge of the final decision as far as who the Browns pick in the draft. General manager will get some say-so. And they even asked him yesterday, one of the media guys said, well, doesn't this preclude you're looking for a coach who wants to have control or a general manager who wants to have control over the roster? His answer made me laugh. I would have spit something up if I had been drinking it. He said, say so No. Control? Yes, that would probably preclude those guys. And I'm thinking, you just precluded anybody who's any good at the job you're trying to hire for. You literally just told them, hey, man, this is not for you. This is for the guy looking to get his first line on his resume, the guy looking to get his entry-level job. And if that's the case, I will argue that you were better off with Mike Pettin. Not with Ray Farmer, but you were better off with Mike Pettin if we're at that level. And unless the guy that comes in here has a pedigree that proves me wrong on that, I don't think you improved by hiring Doug Marrone. I don't think you improved by hiring any of these never been a head coach guys. If that's the case, give me the guy that's been a head coach for 2 years.
Well, and Doug Marrone has been a head coach briefly.
I know, Buffalo.
And
I know.
So has guys like Hugh Jackson, who, by the way, I wouldn't mind seeing here at all.
That's not bad. I like Hugh Jackson, by the way.
Yeah,
I like him.
Sure. I love that Cincinnati offense that he's got over there. Yeah. That is an offense that works and is inventive and imaginative. I have no problem if Hugh Jackson is the guy that comes here. But it's
Kyle Shanahan.
It's not that, here's the thing that just shocked me to my core during watching the press conference. All along, we thought when Jimmy, fires Farmer and Pettin, that what he's got to do and what all the smart money says he has to do is go out there and find a football man
and let them
NFL
do everything
man to run this organization, to be in charge of all football operations. The last thing in the world that I expected to have happen is to have Jimmy identify a guy who's already in the organization to be that guy.
Yes.
No, we don't need to go hire a football man. We've got our guy here, and he's a 38-year-old Harvard lawyer who never played or coached a game on any level. He's been involved in the salary cap negotiations and business involvement in the NFL with these two successful organizations, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns, for the last 10 years. He's our guy. He's smart. He knows about analytics. He knows about processes and systems. And he's going to be our head football guy that our new general manager, who isn't really a general manager, will report to. It blew my mind. I mean, and that's not a statement about Sashi Brown, because I don't know him from, Buster Brown. But, I read a lot about him last night, and I read about how he, was doing, venture capital and private equity work in a Washington, D.C. law firm until he got interested in sports and got a gig with the Jacksonville Jaguars 10 years ago. But beyond that, the bottom line, he's not an NFL guy. He's not a football man. He doesn't know football, and that's really what this team has needed more than anything. And that just blew my mind that somehow they reached into their own organization, and as bright and promising a young man as the 38-year-old Sashi Brown may well be, and he seems to be, he's not a football man. He's not an NFL executive. He's just an NFL executive wannabe.
And you know what? The best part about that, and everything, I concur 100% with what you just said. I was in my car listening to Jimmy's press conference when it hit last night, and I just could not believe what I was hearing. I'm sitting here going, this is a con man. This is literally a carny trying to tell me not to look at the man behind the curtain, that I'm really the Wizard of Oz. Honest to God, that's what it felt like listening. And then I'm just going, do you really think that's the problem? The problem is that you don't have enough control over your own organization, that enough people aren't answering to you. I mean, that's what was wrong here with all of this. I want to go back. I started to make this point at the beginning of the show, and then I got away from it because I wanted to save it for you. And it was, if you guys remember during the game yesterday, Dan, you were there, but if you were watching on TV, they brought up the graphic about halfway through the game of the split in Mike Pettin's time in Cleveland, the first 11 games, and then everything since. And I froze the screen while we were sitting there watching it, and I could have thrown something through it. I know that there's people that will say, oh, you just like Mike Pettin, whatever. That dude's not here anymore, so it really doesn't matter if I like him or not. But I continue to say, how come everybody wants to point this out to me, yet nobody wants to sit here and realize there are definitive reasons why that split happens the way it does, and I believe that the Browns did them all to themselves. The Browns did that, and so that's why part of me feels like I do for the way the last year has gone for Mike Pettin, because I just feel that literally he was dealt a bad hand from the get-go. And I don't know, by the way, who can make this work if in general that's never been a head coach before. You have to, because you can't fight these battles. I mean, Mike Pettin didn't realize his head was cut off before it was already gone. It was already gone, and he didn't even know it was cut off yet. I mean, that's how quickly it happened. He's got a team 7-4. Next thing he knows, he's realizing that he's taking more bullets from inside his own organization than he was from the outside. And I continue to say that enough people do not give credence to the fact that there is a reason that this team went downhill so fastly. It was not an illusion. It was not an illusion that Brian Hoyer, who somehow became not good enough for Cleveland in the second half of the season, and I know his play tailed out. I get it. But he's sitting in the playoffs right now. But anyways, I do get that point. I just have to continue to make that little dig there.
And Jerry, I think it goes back.
But you know what I mean.
We talked about this at the time, and it go back to the exact moment when that split in Mike Pettin's head coaching fortunes happened, and that was with the Browns 7-4 last year after the Atlanta game, after Brian Hoyer engineered a late fourth quarter comeback on the road.
And they were mad.
The Atlanta Falcons to have the Browns sitting at 7-4. And we both heard after that game insiders from the organization saying that in the locker room as the celebration was going on, there stood the stern-faced, clearly unhappy Alex Shiner and Jimmy Haslam, because it meant that the Browns were going to have to continue with Brian Hoyer, and those guys did not want that to happen. You had the owner and the president of the organization unhappy with a team win that put them at 7-4 through 11 games, because their boy Johnny was now going to be denied the opportunity to see the field, because this cemented Brian Hoyer as the starter for this team. You knew right then that this was a cancer in the organization, that this was, when you've got teams, executives rooting for the guy to fail that you've got playing quarterback, and they're upset when he succeeds, you are dysfunctional by definition, my friend. I mean, and that's exactly when that happened, and that was a signal to me that, oh my God, this is trouble,
guys.
Listen, and of course,
listen to what he just said.
Hoyer backers, all the people that were Hoyer backers were, of course, proven right. All the people who were Johnny Manziel doubters have now been proven right in spades, and he has played his last down for this team, no doubt.
No doubt.
So when we called that months ago, if not a year ago, that the decision had been made, and what Mike Pettin thinks of Johnny Manziel is no longer relevant. But now any objective observer of the situation has to know that this guy needs to be jettisoned from this organization. And if he succeeds somewhere else, which I doubt, God bless him for turning his stuff around. But he's done here, and the people that doubted that he would ever do it here have been proven right.
Guys, listen to
that includes you and me, I might add.
Listen to what Dan just said. You guys, this is my point. This is different. We talk about the Browns since 1999 and systemic failure and all of these things. To me, what they're dealing with now is different, because there was a turning around momentum. There was a point where you were at least reaching the middle of the pack in the NFL, and then going to start hopefully working on trying to improve from there. And it was throughout the first 3 quarters of last NFL season. It wasn't 2 games, by the way. It was 3 quarters of the NFL season. And when you have a galvanizing team victory, and in the corner of the locker room, the people that run the show are unhappy that the team just won. That is all that you need to visualize. And this team was torn apart from the inside out. So this isn't, well, the Browns just can't get it right. To me, that's not it. I'm not saying they were getting it right, because clearly you still would have to reap the lack of rewards from the top draft picks of last year, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. But, gosh, geez, the Gilbert and their era-ending game day yesterday is just perfect for their time here in Cleveland, both of them. But when you think about that, and that scene that you just described, that's different. That is a spit in the face of every Browns fan, every person that spent money, every person who has supported this team. This isn't, we just hire idiots who don't know how to do their job. We hire people who don't know how to draft, so we continually have a crappy team. This is, we kicked you in the face because we didn't have the team that we wanted it to be, and we weren't satisfied with it. So we would rather, I mean, look at this, and you look at how it has drastically gone steeply downhill since then. That's not an accident, and to me, it's not an indictment on Mike Pettin as a head coach. It is the entire organization. That's why I think Browns fans truly have, I mean, it's one thing to just root for a loser of a team. That stuff happens around sports, and I get that. But this last 18 months, this you did to yourself, which makes it worse because it was spiteful to the people that support you the most. And now the fact that you're sitting here and you're revising things worse than they were before. It's like, what the hell are we even... What are we talking about here? And that, I mean, do you know how many people in the last few hours have sent me messages, Dan, and said that it's got to be on purpose? This guy has to be doing this on purpose to just erode the fan base so that he can move this team away or something. Like, only an idiot would have came out with the statements that he did yesterday on the outsides of what had just happened. And I go back, like you said, to Atlanta. And speaking of Atlanta, as I was giving you guys the rundown, how about Kyle Shanahan, who's not only obviously didn't get to the playoffs, but who got that offense turned around there. And I expect him to be a top candidate for a couple of these. Don't be surprised if Kyle Shanahan's not a head coach in the NFL after this past offseason. I got a funny feeling Philadelphia might be a place that a guy like Kyle Shanahan might look really good, because I think he would run the kind of offense that would be able to use a lot of Chip Kelly's tools. Speaking of Chip Kelly, for anybody, I don't know. To me, somebody brought this up to me yesterday. What do you think about Chip Kelly? If I'm Jimmy Haslam, I wouldn't return a phone call from Chip Kelly after what he did to the Browns the last time, and after what he did. But either way, I don't even think that caliber of replacement is what we're looking at. We are looking at the guys who we didn't hire before, giving them a second look. Hey, maybe Doug Marone's really expanded that resume in Jacksonville the last couple of years as a coordinator. You know, that's where we're at, guys. But I want to get off of that for a minute. We got plenty of time to talk about these guys and the front office and the coaching and stuff. I mentioned the players. And you were at the stadium yesterday, which is more than can be said for Johnny Manziel. Nobody knew where he was at. At one point, he was missing in action yesterday. He was in Vegas Saturday night. Then I'm telling you, if you don't think that he had somebody back at the house post on his Instagram so that it would look like he was at home, that's exactly what he did. And he would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for Scooby and his darn dog. But anyways, he would have gotten away with it if he didn't get carded at the casino in Vegas. So kind of busted his cover there. But apparently he was missing yesterday and was nowhere to be seen before the game. He was sending the Browns phone calls to voicemail. He wasn't even answering their calls. He was saying, you know what? I'm not going to talk to these guys. I was joking. He said, if you're going to call me on a Sunday morning when I'm drunk, at least tell me you're from the Cowboys. But he was missing, and I don't even know what to make of the reports, because I've heard that they're true and I've heard that they're not from two different people about him showing up and the whole concussion thing not even being a legitimate deal. Him showing up in no condition for the meeting the other day, and that was why he was sent home, and it was simply dressed up as a concussion issue. I thought the concussion thing was kind of fishy to come on a Wednesday in the middle of the week after there was no reports of it on Sunday after the game. But either way, some craziness there. Obviously played his last down. He tapped out last season before the season finished out, and he found a way to limp his way to the sidelines. He did it again this season, and I'll tell you what, I think that one is one that Jimmy made clear yesterday. I don't know about you. He didn't answer the Manziel question, but he did. He said, I'm not comfortable commenting on that right now, but obviously there's some issues. And we do have the second pick in the draft, so I think he made it clear that there is no future for this kid on this team. But the better story.
Let me just
go ahead.
Add one thing to that as far as the Johnny Manziel thing. I don't know about you, but when I've got concussion symptoms, I like to get involved in some air travel.
Yeah, and the casino.
All, and then I like to go to a casino where there's lots of loud noises, bright flashing lights, and loud music playing. And then, flying back and forth in an airplane is something that I really love doing too when I'm, my head hurts.
Let me explain something real quick, Dan.
Basically, real quick. To leave his apartment.
Let me jump in there. I've told you guys about my issues with concussions in the past, and maybe I need to remind you right now that what made my concussion issue worse by the doctor, diagnosed by a physician, by the way, was that I flew from Dallas to Cleveland without my head clearing first, which actually incredibly intensified the post stress effect, whatever you want to call it, the post concussion effect. Right. Yeah, the air travel at 50,000 feet, and that was terrible for my head. And they told me what an idiot I was for doing that, but I didn't know. So I know for a fact that you're not supposed to fly.
Sure, before the game yesterday, I heard that the organization, and I believe it was from Mike Pettin's lips directly, that Johnny had stayed in Vegas, that Johnny had elected to stay overnight in Vegas, and based on the concussion protocol rules, that he didn't have to report to the stadium. Then later on, of course,
he had to go to Berea.
Others said that he was supposed to report to Berea according to the rules. He doesn't have to report to the stadium venue for the game, but he does have to report to the organization offices on game day, which he didn't do. But I had actually heard before the game on my way in or on the radio on the way up to Cleveland that that he had elected to stay in Vegas and that Pettin was okay with that and the organization was okay with that. So, much ado about Johnny, but I think it's fair to say that he's done. He basically gave a big FU to the organization yesterday, and then of course we had the first time I've ever seen. I don't know about you. The first time I had ever seen Justin Gilbert interviewed on camera after the game when they approached him about the rumor that he had declined to play. That he had refused to play in the game yesterday, and he shrugged that off. Said, "No, you saw me. I was out there on special teams." But the rumor was that he had decided he wasn't going to play on defense from scrimmage, and of course, 13 catches later for Antonio Brown, it showed that the guys that we had out there, and not to say Justin Gilbert would have been any better because there's no basis for saying that, but. Obviously, the Browns desperately needed cornerback help, coverage help, as everybody from Tayshaun Gibson at corner to Pierre Desir to everyone else that they threw out there, let's say, struggled in the passing game.
That's the least of the words you could use there. Yeah, Justin Gilbert, amazing. As far as Manziel, I'm telling you, I think I may have said this last year when I saw the direction that this whole thing was going, and now I'm 100% sure that I was very precise when I said the story will be told. I think the drafting of Johnny Manziel will go down as one of the 5 worst franchise-changing decisions in Cleveland Browns history. One of the 5 decisions that had the most reverberations through the franchise, that had the effects that were felt for years to come. I honestly believe that right up there at the top of the list will be the drafting of Johnny Manziel because of the way it changed. I'll use Jimmy's own words. The drafting of Johnny Manziel completely changed the organizational direction that this team was even attempting to head.
Well, and it's funny that Jimmy Haslam would say that because by multiple reports, it was his call.
Yeah.
And, it's okay to stand up there yesterday in the press conference and say, well, I take full responsibility. Well, damn right. you're obviously the owner. Ultimately, it falls on you. I don't know if that was such a courageous thing for him to step up and say the blindingly obvious thing, that he's responsible. It clearly was an example of a franchise in disarray when the owner's making drafting decisions. And so now instead we're going to have a 38-year-old lawyer who never played or coached a game making them.
I hate to say this because I don't like to pick on people while they're down, but I think we clearly know now why that man was homeless on draft day a couple years ago. No offense. I'm just saying I think we understand now. He wasn't down on his luck. He clearly was a bad decision maker. That's all I'm going to say. Justin Gilbert. Dan brought it up here just a moment ago. If you haven't heard the stories, that is the big wildfire coming out of yesterday's game, is that apparently he refused to play defense. He was asked to go in the game and contribute, and as he said, any help would have been, I swear, I think Antonio Brown could have caught 80 passes if he wanted to yesterday. I mean, it was ridiculous how, and he was playing against my son in our fantasy football championship. He was playing against my son, and I said, welcome to my world, son. You're playing against a guy who's got Antonio Brown going against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, I knew he was going to have a 40-point day.
The jokes write themselves, Jerry. When Justin Gilbert, when he was on the field, he refused to play defense.
Well, there you go. He wasn't any good then either. But yes, apparently he refused in. Like, I don't know where these guys get. Maybe they thought because Mike Pettin was a dead man walking that you could just do what you want and there will be no repercussions. I'll tag Justin Gilbert into Manziel. Not only do I say the drafting of Manziel, but I'll just simply say the 2014 or 2013, whatever, first round of the draft for the draft heading into the 2014 season. That right there, I mean, those two picks and the way that was bungled, and Manziel, Gilbert, all of that, par for the course here from where they're going. But I mean, that's pretty ballsy there. Dwayne Bowe had his bags literally packed before the game, and I had that from somebody in the locker room who told me that he came back, put his clothes on, had his bags packed. He was out. He was out before half the guys were even in the shower. So there's just another tack on to this season that you could take from it. How about this? While we're talking about the bright future for the Cleveland Browns, the offensive line that caused so many problems this year has a couple of stalwart parts that are the good parts of the offensive line. They ain't going to be here next year. Alex Mack, after the game, said, going to have some fond memories of playing in this stadium. I'm telling you now, Alex Mack is gone, brother. The Browns couldn't offer him $100 million to come back to Cleveland. Mitchell Schwartz basically said similar comments after the game yesterday. There's another one. His demand's going to be high in the marketplace just because right tackles are valuable. Tackles in general are valuable. He will find a market for him. He's gone. And Joe Thomas said, you know what? Change is hard. I don't know if I'm willing to go through it again. Joe Thomas has resigned himself, I believe, finally, to being traded away from Cleveland. I think the Browns make a phone call in the next month or two, see if Denver's still willing to come off that first-round pick late in the first round or something like that. And I got a funny feeling that all three of those guys are gone. But even if only two of the three are gone, that is going to strip down whatever is left of your offensive line. Bad to worse as far as the offensive line goes, no doubt about it.
Yeah, you're right, and it's very sad because if an organization can alienate Joe Thomas after all that he's been through and after all, as great as he's been, and he's a Hall of Famer, for heaven's sake. And he's been as loyal as anybody, and a guy who never said a bad word about Cleveland or the team. If you've finally beaten him down to the point where he's ready to pack his bags, and he does have 1 year left on his deal, and I question whether, certainly I don't think you can get a first-round pick for him because, first of all, teams know that he wants out, and second of all, he's on the downside of his career. It's not like he's a 3 or 4 year veteran; he's a 9-year veteran, and it's going to be tough to get anything near the top of the draft.
Well, Dan, no. Denver was willing to come off of a first because their first round pick is going to be like 30 or something like that. It's going to be near the bottom of the first round. They weren't willing to tag on the second or the third round pick. That was it. Like the Browns,
wanted another player too.
Right. They wanted more thrown in the pot.
Young pass rushers.
Yeah.
Thrown in the deal, but
Barrett or something like that. Yeah.
And I could be wrong, and I'll be surprised if they get any first for him. I'd kind of be surprised if they got a second.
Me too.
Just because of how teams overvalue draft choices these days. But it is sad, and certainly I believe Alex Mack is gone. I did hear Mitchell Schwartz say the other day that in a perfect world he stays in Cleveland.
Right.
Don't know what that means. Don't know.
That's
how,
the clue. In a perfect world is the clue that I'm leaving.
Yeah. How much better would this situation have to get to be perfect? Well, a lot. I think we're maybe a little bit short of perfect right now.
It's the opposite of perfect here, man.
Yeah, whatever that is, whatever that opposite is of perfect, that's what we are. But yeah, it's true. It lends support even more to the idea that with that second pick in the draft that you go get a Laramie Tunsil or a sort of a no-brainer bookend offensive tackle, because it is tough to go wrong drafting a blue chip offensive tackle. Obviously, you can always use one. We were going to need one anyway, even if Joe Thomas is still around, because you have to replace him eventually. But who knows? And then there's time to talk about that. Right now, I'm just despairing of this organization because we've got an owner who apparently hasn't learned a darn thing through his failures starting out. Now, he's a serious guy. Presumably, his other business is profitable and doing well, but it doesn't give me a warm, fuzzy feeling inside, Jerry, when you stop and think that Jimmy Haslam's other primary business basically admitted to screwing over its customers. I've used that line a few times in the last couple of weeks, but it's really true. And right now, Jimmy Haslam is saying, what Flying J did to those truckers, that's what the Cleveland Browns are doing to their season ticket holders and their loyal fans right now. They're playing them for idiots. That insults me as a 27-year, 28-year season ticket holder. I'm insulted by what I heard last night. I'm being condescended to. I'm being taken for a fool, and I don't like that.
Dan Wismar, everybody hates Cleveland. Strong words there. Welcome in if you're just joining us here on the Sports Fix, and I agree 100%. What Jimmy Haslam has learned in the last 2 years is that Jimmy Haslam didn't have enough control over the organization, and had he been the one talking to everybody, apparently everything would have been okay. That's what it was, is we just can't allow the general manager and the coach to talk to each other anymore. We'll just make sure that it's like when I've got 2 children, so this is the perfect example for me. When they can't stop fighting and you tell them to go do something. Okay, you guys go load the dishwasher. And you hear fighting. Okay, you know what? You're not allowed to talk to each other anymore. If you've got something to say, you come tell me and I'll tell him. And if you've got something to say, you come tell me and I'll tell him. You guys just don't talk to each other anymore since you can't stop arguing. That's what the Browns are doing right now. They're putting the guys in timeout, and Mom and Dad are going to take control now. And Dad has got it all figured out. It's amazing that is what he concluded from the last 2 years.
Yeah, it is. And I guess the only saving grace, if you will, or the only thing that, and I'm stopping short of optimism here. I'm saying the only thing that even tells me to slow down, wait, and give some people the benefit of the doubt is to say that it can't get worse. Okay?
Yes, it can, brother.
And maybe it can, but at least we can say that the structure that they had before they changed the structure was a failure. And, I think that the idea that you're going to hire a talent evaluator to report to a non-football guy is lunacy. I think is there any other team, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know what the structure is of the various 32 NFL football teams, but the only one I know of where the coach reports to the owner is the Dallas Cowboys, and that's because the owner is playing make-believe general manager.
Exactly.
He doesn't have anybody with that title. He's playing dress up as a general manager, and you see what happens. The Dallas Cowboys, 4-12? Is that how they finished? And since 1989, the Dallas Cowboys have won one more playoff game than the Cleveland Browns have, which is to say one. That organization is a failure right now. I don't know if has he already given a vote of confidence to Garrett? As
yes,
a coach, I think
think
heard
so.
that he has, but it seems to me crazy.
You know what? I'll tell you what, though. I see a lot of the media down there because I've got a lot of friends that live down in that area. So the Texas teams, I kind of see a lot of their news on my news feed a lot. So I'll tell you what, the thought down there is that Jimmy loves Garrett because he's a puppet for him, man. He's a yes man for him. He tells the media that everything that Jerry Jones does is great, and he doesn't second guess him, and that's what he wants. And plus, he kind of looks at him as almost like a son because he was there as a player and he's there now as a coach and all of that stuff. So who knows? I'll tell you what. Apparently, Jimmy and Jerry talk. Jimmy, like, what am I doing wrong? Well, you know what you're doing wrong, Jimmy? You don't have enough control. You're letting other people run your team. And then Jimmy said, "You're right. You're right, man. I'm going to take more control." Thanks, Jerry.
Well, by the way, has anybody ever seen Jerry Jones and Jimmy Haslam in the same room?
That is true.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah, it really is sad. But no, seriously, do you know of any other franchise where the coach reports to the owner?
Hell no. Absolutely not. I cannot, for the life of me, think of a team that would have. Why would you want that? First off, that's like if at McDonald's, if the even it's whatever a smaller front level manager or something like that. I don't know all the jobs, but regardless, they don't talk directly to the owner of the franchise. They may talk to their manager or their direct supervisor, but they don't. It's like chain of command. And in general, when I work at radio stations,
talking to them is one thing, and reporting to them is another.
Yeah, daily reporting. That's what I mean. Like, that's what you have an organizational structure for. That's what you have sub-bosses, and you have people in between because nobody can handle all that. I can't think of a sports franchise that except the Cavs maybe because everybody answers to LeBron. But other than that, I can't think. I'm just kidding. I can't think of a franchise where it goes through like that, and I can't think why you would want that structure because that's just asking for problems. Guess what? The minute you do that, and think about it now, the first time, you know how media reports go, and they love to do them all the time over nothing. Well, the first time a media report comes out that they were talking about you and you weren't there, whether it's the coach or the general manager, now you got to wonder because you got this weird man. Maybe he is, and I know what he did to the last guy. Oh, by the way, here's the other thing. While we're finishing up talking about Jimmy and dysfunctional stuff, this was some stuff that I didn't like. The way things were starting to come out at the end. And some of the national media had some really harsh words about the Browns organization from a personal standpoint because of the way the last few days, the reports that came out, whether it was reports coming out that Jimmy had already begun interviewing coaching candidates before he let Mike Pettin know that he was going to be gone, and that it was known throughout the building. Very disrespectful of Mike Pettin while he still had the job. It was literally known by secretaries and people through the building what was going on, and everybody's smiling to Mike's face because nobody will give him an answer. But not just that, the things that leaked out, and you and I have talked about this before, how these teams love, especially when they've got their agendas and they pipe them through the media and stuff, the details that came out, like the way they tried to bury Mike Pettin. I don't know if you heard some of the stories that came out over the last few days, but there was some hardcore anti-Mike Pettin stories. Apparently one of them was that the night before, and I find this one hard to believe. I just find it very hard to believe that the head coach of a 2-win or 3-win team would, the night before playing in Kansas City, guarantee victory to his team. I just find that very foolish to think that Mike Pettin would guarantee that his team's going to go into Kansas City and win. But that was one story that came out over the weekend, was that the Pettin sat his players down and guaranteed that they were going to beat Kansas City, and then everybody just rolled their eyes at him when he said it because they knew they weren't going to win the game. The other one, which was really damning, was apparently there's a story that before the second Bengals game a couple of weeks ago, he had a Saturday night meeting with the team, told them that he was probably going to lose his job because they didn't do their job well enough, and they should think about that and how they didn't play well enough, and it was going to affect the coaches, and he was going to lose. Basically, he was going to lose his job because they didn't do their job. And those are a couple of stories that came out over the weekend, which, I find both of them, knowing what I know and the little bit of interaction I've personally had with Mike Pettin, I find both of those pretty hard to believe. Even if they were true, the fact that they come out, it's an example of the organization trying to just being sloppy in the way they do something and giving themselves an even worse image within the league to other potential candidates. These guys all know how you treated Mike Pettin on the way out, how you treated whoever on the way out, But did you hear those stories?
I had not. I had heard the one about Cincinnati about saying that he might lose his job because they hadn't done theirs all that well. And anybody knows that you could sit in a meeting and hear Mike Pettin talk and come away with that as your message, completely out of context.
Right.
If that's what you chose to hear, then that's what you were going to hear. If he was critical of the way the team had been playing, and also at the same time said I might lose my job, that somebody sitting there might, accuse him of having that be a cause and effect kind of relationship. So, like you, it doesn't sound like the guy that we've heard and observed over the last couple of years, who's basically conducted himself in a very classy way at all times. Like you say, having been dealt a horrible hand, now, was he overmatched as a head coach in the NFL? I think so. I really do. He was a guy that Jimmy Haslam personally liked, and he's also a guy that Jimmy Haslam was able to get to say yes to his offer after several people said no thanks to his offer. And by the way, in the articles this morning about the coaching job being open and names already being floated, including Adam Gase, including Terrell Austin, the Lions defensive coordinator, I'd be very surprised if Adam Gase ever shows up for an interview in Cleveland. I'd be surprised if Terrell Austin or Chip Kelly ever shows up for an interview in Cleveland. I don't want Chip Kelly here. And by the way, I don't think there's any chance. It's not that Jimmy wouldn't take his phone call because he's insulted about what happened last time. It's because Chip Kelly wants way, way more control than Jimmy Haslam's willing to give him. He is the exact opposite of the candidate that Jimmy is advertising that he's looking for. Chip Kelly wants not only, general management responsibilities in addition to coaching, he wants full roster authority. That's why he was let go in Philly, because he met with the owner and demanded that he be given more, not less power. And, he's the anti-Haslam candidate. He's the opposite of the Haslam candidate.
Right. No, I'm with you, man. I just got as you're talking to me, I just got the Browns player quotes from today, and the first thing that popped out at me was a big quote from Joe Thomas here, because we were just talking about this, and boy, Joe say what you will, and I know there's some people that say, well, who's Joe Thomas, whatever. I take a lot out of what he said because he's a guy that has earned that kind of credence. But here's Joe Thomas with the media today. A couple of question and answers here. If he was surprised by the Browns front office changes, he said, I wouldn't say it was a surprise based on the record we're seeing. 3-13, it's hard to keep your job pretty much anywhere. He was asked what Jimmy Haslam talked to the team, and all of the players here basically say Jimmy Haslam went in this morning, talked to the team, and said, you guys go home, get your bodies healthy, we're going to find the right guy, and we're going to get things turned around for you guys. Same old hubba-lub. Joe Thomas asked if he's angry about another round of hiring processes. He said, it doesn't make you happy, that's for sure, when you have to go through another coaching change. It's tough on everybody. It always sets you back, and nobody is ever happy about it. Asked if he is confident in the coaching search, given the number of head coaches he's had in his career. Here's a good answer. I think it remains to be seen who we bring in and how they go about the process, who we get for a head coach, who we get in free agency. There's a lot of things to be seen in the process that will hopefully put us in the right direction. To me, that's clear as day saying, hey, I've seen this before. They ain't got it right yet. Maybe they'll get it right this time. He was also asked if his mind has changed about his comments yesterday about the future, his future with the Cleveland Browns, and he said none of that changes until you actually put a head coach in place, put a general manager here and get a feel for the direction of the franchise. So he is very clearly, even today, because I wondered if maybe, how much of that is, spur of the moment, emotions, all of that stuff. But here with the data, think about it. He made it very clear. I want to see who the coach is, who the general manager is, what the hell we're doing before I make any decisions whether I want to play here anymore or not. And that is, like you said, coming from Joe Thomas, who has stuck up for every head coach, every crappy quarterback, every person on this team for 10 years now, to come from him. When you break Joe Thomas, you've broken everybody.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, because he really is, although not official or not, appointed, the spokesperson for the players on this team, basically as the veteran leader, as the senior All-Pro. Between him and Joe Hayden, hasn't been seen for 6 weeks. So, it falls to Joe Thomas to be the spokesperson for the franchise and for the players on the franchise. And, you're right. I think he does speak for them, and I think they respect him, and I think when he speaks that he can legitimately claim to be speaking for the players as a group.
I've got to be honest here. I'm reading these quotes, and usually players, man, you can read a lot. I think yesterday, not firing Pettin, not firing Farmer, because there's players that understand that this is a business and whatever, but I think Jimmy Haslam's words yesterday have really negatively affected players, much in the way you and I are talking about here, because here's Andrew Hawkins. He was asked, do you think the Browns can turn things around relatively quickly given Jimmy's comments? And he said, every year we make speculations and we talk about this isn't going to do that or this is going to do that. Then the season comes around and it's completely different. The years go by and it's completely different as what you've talked about. These same questions have been asked how many different times? For me to give an answer to that, we could very well have the same conversation a few years from now. That's coming from Andrew Hawkins, who literally is just saying, who knows? They could screw this up again.
He's only been here 2 years.
Right. He literally just said they might screw this up again, and 3 years from now we might be doing this again.
Yeah, that's sad, but I would put more stock in a quote from somebody who'd been around for a while. But who knows? And Joe Thomas's comments seem to be fairly, anodyne and not really. It's sort of a politically correct answer. Hey, we'll see. That's basically what he's saying. We'll see who they hire. But I would say that these names that are being floated right now are guys that will never even have an interview here.
Wow.
I would love to see them go after Hugh Jackson. I wouldn't mind seeing them interview Josh McDaniel.
McDaniel I like because of the local ties as well, too, and he's got a good mind for and he's one of the ones that Bill took back after they left. And that speaks a lot to me, too. Belichick said, come back to my offense. It hasn't quite been the same since you left. Here's one. Right. Justin Gilbert, today, just a few moments ago, talking to the media on if he's offended by comments that Ray Farmer's draft picks hurt the team. He said, they didn't work out this season, and I was one because of injury. I can tell you that when I was healthy, I was about to start or starting, and that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Wow. Justin Gilbert has...
The other quote from Justin Gilbert, Jerry, was they asked him about... his problems a year ago, and he did say, I did miss a ton of meetings last year. And they asked him why, and he had a 2-word answer, hard sleeper. He's a hard sleeper, he says, and that's why he, quote, missed a ton of meetings a year ago. That was Mary Kay reporting that based on, I believe it was after the game last night, may have been today.
Listen. This guy's a trip.
He's a hard sleeper, so that explains that, Justin. I mean,
how about this? Check this out. On if expectations are higher for him being a top 10 draft pick, he said, from time to time they are, but I can pretty much guarantee that they'll get out of me as long as I take care of my body. They're going to get exactly what they drafted me to do. This guy is a trip, man.
Yeah.
Hey, will a new coaching staff help him? He said, it doesn't really make that much difference to me. It's just on me to go out and play the game and play the field and use my game, use my strong points and not focus on anything else, just play ball.
That's right. This is awesome, man. I mean, this is where you're at. That it doesn't matter because I firmly believe that Justin Gilbert will not be a part of this team going forward either. Speaking of that, reports while we're on the air from NFL Network, as guys are doing their exit meetings, there's reports coming out of NFL Network that Johnny Manziel been told that he will not be a part of the team going forward. I can't confirm any of this, but he did come out of his meetings and not talk to any of the media on his way out. So it's not a surprise. The only surprise to me is that I saw Bruce in the chat room say that they were discussing him being released. I would have to think that unless, well, you know what? They're so stupid sometimes that they may just cut him. But you would think you would try to get, to me, any assets for something is better than nothing. I would definitely. I think he played.
Especially when all the focus has been on the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it never helps your marketability when they, first of all, what NFL team wants this cancer on their team?
Just the Cowboys.
so you've already he has self-selected a minimal number of interested parties by being who he is and doing what he does, and the whole issue of being a drug addict or a alcoholic or both. None of that helps his case. And then he's identified the team, the only team, frankly, that he wants to play for, and they're another bottom feeder. So obviously you limit what the Dallas Cowboys are going to be willing to give up. A conditional 7th-round draft pick if he makes our team. But why in the world would they offer more than that when they are the only presumably interested party? I can't believe that there's a long line of people calling the Cleveland Browns today trying to make a deal for Johnny Manziel. I just can't believe it.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Because he's proven that he's a numbskull and that he's more of a problem than he is a solution to anything you got going on.
And you know what? And this will be the end of that because I got some other things I want to talk to you about as far as Johnny Manziel. But yesterday I was talking to the group of guys as we were watching the farewell of this season. And I'm not going to lie, about halfway through the fourth quarter, I actually used the phrase, can somebody just put a bullet in the head of this Browns season already? It just will not end here, man. But, with Johnny Manziel, I use this, I said, whether you want to talk about a relationship or a friend of yours or whatever, but we all have those people in your life, whether they're personal friends, whether they're somebody you're friends with on social media and you read their news feed, and you're those people that are always have a situation. They always have something, and they'll be in a really bad shape, but then they'll get a break, whether it's catch a new job, whether it's a new relationship, whether it's whatever.
Rehab.
And they're straightened out. I know of people left and right who will be like, man, it was that last girlfriend. She screwed up my credit, man. She got me in all kinds of debt, but luckily I got rid of her. I'm with a new woman now. I got a new job. Life is going good, man. I really got things straightened out. 90% of the time, a year later, that person is in the same situation that they were before with a different person, and they're always looking for a restart. They're always moving to a new city, or they're looking for a new job because they just need a fresh start. Guess what? After the third or fourth fresh start, you finally realize that it was that person. The issues are coming with you. It's not all the external stuff, and that's where Johnny Manziel's at in his life. He's convinced himself that he's going to go somewhere else and flip the switch and everything's going to be good, and everybody is going to see that there are deep rooted issues with that kid, but
yeah,
everybody
it's an addict's mindset.
Yeah.
It's the denial and the blaming of others that is typical of addictive behavior. So it is what it is. The change of scenery isn't going to change who Johnny Manziel is, and he's apparently a guy who, always wants to make somebody else the heavy.
Yep. And
which is, I say, typical of addicts.
And you're right. That is total addict behavior right there. And we're talking about Gilbert going. We're talking about Manziel going. I mean, that's just two right off the tip of the iceberg that won't be a part of this team going forward. I mentioned it. I don't know if you had tuned in yet at the beginning of the show. I start looking around. We got the playoffs coming up, which is some great matchups, and I want to talk about actual football with teams that win. But you look around. There's not a roster in the playoffs that doesn't have coaches on the coaching staff and players on the field that in the last just 3, 4, 5 seasons were all
parts of the Cleveland Browns over the last couple of years. And again, none of them are superstars. I'm not talking about a star quarterback or some major star, but they're all good to very good players that are all contributing on all of these good teams, that they weren't let go for just talent evaluation reasons. A lot of them were swept up in regime changes and in what comes with what the Browns are doing now. And we talk about it a lot, but I don't think fans realize that that's one of the things too. Look around. I mean, like I said, even guys like an Ataba Rubin, who's gone and really helped that run defense in Seattle up front, and go through the coaching staffs. I mean, there's a dozen coaches.
Jabal Sheard, T.J. Ward.
Right. You can just go through them all. Everywhere.
Brandon Whedon, for heaven's sake.
Hoyer, all of them. They're all over these playoff teams. And if you took all 15 or 20 of them and kept them on the Browns roster with the best players that they have now, you would have a middle-of-the-pack or better NFL team, and you would actually have a base to build from. Those are the players that all fall through the cracks of regime changes, that it's not just picking the wrong players, it's the restarts that are every bit as damaging as picking the wrong guys.
Which is not to say that if you had the same coaching staff in place, that T.J. Ward wouldn't have left as a free agent, or that Jabal Sheard wouldn't have left as a free agent. All teams lose free agents because they're grabbing the brass ring, and someone's overpaid to improve the team. But you're right that it is an argument for stability's sake, continuity for continuity's sake. That those kinds of things don't have to happen, and the teams don't, players don't feel rootless, or they don't feel like they've just lost their strongest advocate in the coaching staff or whatever, or their assistant coach has left that they had a high regard for or whatever. Right now is the time when the team and its front office and its coaching staff is the most vulnerable, because we're a wounded bird right now, and there are organizations that are going to sweep in, and if there are assistant coaches on this roster, and maybe John DiFilippo might be one of them, or somebody else, who has a very good chance of, because their futures are up in the air, they're going to be listening to offers and approaches from other teams, and maybe you continue to lose people that you might possibly have kept in a new coaching regime.
I agree with you absolutely, man. It's going to be it's going to be interesting to see what the Browns do over the next few weeks. But some of these other teams that we're talking about, playoffs are going to be a lot of fun. I mean, as the season... How about, by the way, and again, this is a little kick in the teeth to the Browns because, hey, Teddy Bridgewater, man, he was... Your survey says, draft Teddy Bridgewater. Nope, we let the Minnesota Vikings do it. And look at how the Vikings have turned around. And here they sit, the number 3 seed by winning the division off of that victory. The number 3 seed in the playoffs here. But, and that one's blatant to me, because you literally spent $150,000 for somebody to go, hey, draft Teddy Bridgewater, for you to go, nah, not going to draft Teddy Bridgewater, and then here you go.
Yeah,
but
well, to me, it's not nearly as glaring a mistake. And I got corrected, by the way, by Tom Reed, the plain dealer. He said something about the Browns passing on Khalil Mack, and I said, no, Khalil Mack went number 3. The Browns were in the 4th spot, and I had forgotten that the Browns did, in fact, pass on Khalil Mack. That Khalil Mack went number 5 to Oakland.
He went 5 to the Raiders, yeah.
After the Browns had traded out of 4, because everyone was thinking Sammy Watkins, and the Bortles had gone 3 to
Jacksonville.
To Jacksonville, and how would just, for example, Julio Jones, Khalil Mack and Derek Carr look right now in Cleveland? I mean, just Julio Jones alone, the year they traded out of that pick, and then Khalil Mack the year they traded out of number 4 for essentially Justin Gilbert. It blows your mind to think that these people were just flat out asleep at the switch, and everybody knew that Khalil Mack was going to be an elite player. I don't think anybody thought that he would be the kind of guy necessarily would be getting 5 sacks in a game and becoming, maybe the best, if not the second best defensive player in the NFL right now, if you want to put J.J. Watt up front. But in his second year, he's tearing it up and is just an absolute beast. And he was right in our lap when we were picking 4, and we didn't have the sense to draft him.
I know, brother. I know. And I mean, those are the ones that get you as much as you look at the ones you drafted and got wrong. It's those. You combine all of those. And when you talk about these coaches, I mentioned it earlier. I think that this offseason, the next ghost of Cleveland Browns' recent past may strike as well. I think Kyle Shanahan ends up with one of these head coaching jobs. Man.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. I already heard this morning, and people talk about him in Miami. People talk about him New York Giants. Because I believe did not Coughlin step down today?
Did he?
I think I heard that while just before I got on with you. I'm not sure about that, so you might want to confirm that. But there was, in fact, it might have been even in your news feed on the.
No, there's talk that he is, but.
Hasn't happened yet. Okay.
I didn't think that he had yet. Absolutely, yeah. Because last night he was mad. He was mad when they asked him about it last night. He said, "Hey, did I go anywhere? Did I tell you I was going anywhere? Then stop asking me those stupid questions."
Yeah. He's earned some deference there. But I absolutely believe that Shanahan will be a head coach in this league next year. I think Hugh Jackson will too. And clearly Adam Gase is still a hot property. I question whether Jimmy is even going to be able to get any of them on an interview, let alone to say yes to his offer, just based on how he set this thing up. And I think over the next couple of days, you're going to see just widespread ridicule, well-deserved, of this half-baked structure that he's got in place. And I think it'll be the joke of the week in the NFL to the extent that the Browns matter at all.
And that's the truth.
And will be a topic of discussion. I think it'll just be ridicule more than anything else.
I honestly believe, as much as we talked about the fact that he let Mike Pettin go after 2 years, and it was right after a quick firing of Chud. As much as that hurts you with your candidate quality, I honestly believe that he doubled down on the damage that he did to his coaching search with that press conference at 8 o'clock last night when Jimmy Haslam laid out his new. He would have been better off nothing. Just no press conference.
Right.
Just
exactly.
leave it alone.
Even if you, like I said before, even if you've cooked this up, why announce it to the world and open yourself up to second guessing and criticism and ridicule, which undoubtedly will
I'll tell you what. So. You're gonna be getting guys like Jim Tom Sula coming through here. That's you have so handcuffed yourself here in literally the post statement that you made, and Jimmy's press conference has made it so much worse. I mean, even if you had visions, which I want nothing to do with, of Chip Kelly dancing through your head. The Browns position, Chip Kelly's already been tied to 2 other teams. He's already heading to San Francisco to interview. He's not picking up the phone for the Browns. None of these guys are now. Anybody that had the Browns on their list at 8 o'clock last night had a text from their agent at 8:05 that said, "Take the Browns off your list. Did you hear what that crazy guy is going to do? He wants to run the whole thing, man." And so,
right. And speaking of Chip Kelly, after Oregon blew a 31-0 halftime lead the other night, I think Oregon's calling. Maybe asking if he might want to come back to Eugene.
Can we just be friends again, please? Can we just forget about the past and
let bygones be bygones?
Yeah, we could get along, man. I'll tell you what, it'll be interesting here. Like you said, there's a lot more coaching jobs than there are general manager. I think there should be 6, 8 probably head coaching openings here around the NFL. Almost a third of the league pretty much will have head coaching opportunities here. General manager, it's only going to be a handful of teams.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I think someone said eight jobs already are open. No, if you count teams that had interim coaches in place and people like Miami or whatever that had an interim coach
Philly,
going. But
Cleveland, San Francisco, that's 4. San Diego said they're keeping McCoy, even though they went 4-12.
That's right, I did hear that.
5. Yeah, you're probably right. There's a good 6-8 already open if you count the places that had interim coaches here at the end of the season there as well. So the competition's
Indianapolis
thick.
Looks like they're going to be. Is that official, Indianapolis?
I haven't heard it yet, but I don't know. What would you do with Chuck Pagano? Would that be a name that would interest you?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
don't know an awful lot about Chuck Pagano, but I'm going to say, just first blush, I would say no. I'd rather have Frankly, I'd rather have an offensive guy, whether that be Adam Gase, whether that be Josh McDaniels, or that be Hugh Jackson. All those names are more interesting to me than Pagano or some of the other kind of retread names that are floating around.
See, you're going to hate this. I'm the opposite. I want a defensive guy, but I want a guy that can actually be a defensive guy. Like, not coming in with the 28th ranked run defense in the NFL. Like, somebody who can actually put the defense together, because our defense is atrocious. And I think that, to me, I didn't have a huge amount of expectations with what DeFilippo did with the offense, but I think he showed that an offense. I think that the offense can be handled by any competent coordinator at the NFL level to an extent. What I mean is the Browns defense needs a professional. It needs a professional to come in and fix this thing, man. But I hear you.
Jared, I just remember 2 years ago, and this came up when I was talking to the guys that sit next to me at the stadium for 17 years. About this yesterday, when in the fourth quarter I looked and Ben Roethlisberger's white jersey did not have a grass stain on it, and have we even brushed up against Ben Roethlisberger today? Have we even caused him to move one way or the other? I mean, the guy played the entire game completely unscathed. I just remember going back 2 years when Mike Pettin was coming in for Buffalo, and man, this guy, they lead the league in sacks, and he's going to have blitzers coming from every angle. You're not going to know who's coming after that quarterback because he's got a system, and he's going to put so much pressure on the quarterback with all these pass rushers. And we signed Paul Kruger, and we signed this guy. And, the quarterbacks aren't going to know what hit them when Mike Pettin's pass rush gets after him 2 years ago, Jared. We haven't rushed a passer ever since. I mean, this team cannot put pressure on the quarterback, and Ben Roethlisberger had 320, I think, after 3 quarters yesterday, and did it without a grass stain on his jersey. So it just was making me ill when I was going back and thinking about all the talk about Mike Pettin's defense, and boy, you're just not going to know where it's coming from. They won't know what hit him.
Yeah. I absolutely feel your pain on that one, my man. Too. Romeo came in. He was a defensive genius, man. If we're just going to hire some coordinator, man, I'd hire. Can we bring Eric Mangini back to Cleveland? Can we put Manginius back in the booth, man? Like, he was
He at least we know he would never have drafted Justin Gilbert because. He wasn't on the dean's list at Oklahoma State. I mean, we know that Mangini, he wanted to draft choir boys, and we had Mangini in here, and he drafted Brian Robisky and Massaquoi.
But he picked his own general manager.
They were, all academic in their conferences. But anyway, I always appreciated Mangini. His teams were disciplined. They didn't commit a lot of penalties. I remember them going into New Orleans and kicking their butt and beating New England and things that the Browns teams haven't done since Eric Mangini was gone.
I'm just saying, they were directionally, the arrow was facing in the right direction, as Jimmy would like to put it, man. And
right.
The man genius, man. I would take him right now. But anyways, we'll get into that, man. I mean, it's so hard to even speculate. We'll see where they're going to go by the time we come back Wednesday. Matter of fact, we'll look at the playoffs Wednesday. But who do you got just outside looking in? Who do you think is going to end up in the Super Bowl just looking before they start playing?
I'm going to say the winner of the Panthers and Cardinals. I mean, the 2 seeds out there in the NFC look awfully good. I don't think there's anybody comparable in the AFC that can hang with both of those teams. Although certainly Seattle remains a threat, even though they're the 6th seed and going to be playing on the road through the playoffs. They're not as good a road team as they are, but they are formidable and they are hot. So you got to sort of have them as an asterisk team. Doubtful. I don't know if they can go. They've already gone, I guess, to Arizona just the other day and won, and I think they've. They got beat by Carolina, but in any event, those looked like the 2 best teams in the league. Since the Steelers running back is here, I would have given the Steelers an outside shot, even as a wild card, just because of how good their offense is and their defense is good enough. But I don't know. DeAngelo Williams went down yesterday.
Is he out?
That leaves them without. I'm not sure, but that looked like a serious ankle sprain.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I just don't see him coming back and being 100% anytime soon. They're running Fitzgerald Toussaint from Michigan there as a running back now. I don't know that you're going to go far in the playoffs with that kind of a running game. They had, I believe, 24 yards rushing against the Browns through 3 quarters yesterday. I don't know what they ended up with, but they could not run the ball at all against a terrible rush defense. So, but anyway, I would have liked the Steelers if they had D'Angelo Williams in there to possibly be a surprise team in the AFC. But you got to like what Kansas City looks like, and you got to like, of course, New England is always going to be there. But I think the NFC is stronger at the top this year, and I'm looking at the Cardinals or the Panthers as the team to beat.
You and I can talk about
go all the way.
The games, we'll talk about them on Wednesday, but I will say this. I got the Steelers upsetting the Bengals Saturday. I don't think they can go all the way.
That wouldn't surprise me a bit. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah, I think that, we saw, obviously Antonio Brown smoked the Browns. He does that as a tradition. But as long as Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown are on the same field, man, and they've got plenty of other weapons too, but I like them.
It's also easy to see Seattle going into Washington and winning.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That looks, and also
Seattle's got Minnesota. It's the Packers that are going to Washington.
That's right. And that, although the Packers really just looked like chopped liver last night, they did not look good.
Hey, didn't the Vikings knock off Seattle a couple weeks ago, earlier in the season?
The Vikings did beat Seattle,
and that's a rematch. Yeah. It was in Minnesota too, I believe, when they played. I'm going to pull that up here real quick. Yeah, matter of fact, that was on December 6th. No, Seattle steamrolled them. They were at Seattle. At Minnesota. That was a home game.
Minnesota and Seattle was in the middle of their hot streak.
Yeah, that's when they started it. They started that run and they rolled them 38-7. Yeah, they were like game 2 of that, and then they rolled Baltimore, Cleveland, and they fell to St. Louis and then knocked off Arizona, and they had Arizona beat. So Arizona pulled the starters at like halftime, man, which my son didn't appreciate that because he had Larry Fitzgerald going. He ended up losing his fantasy Super Bowl by like 11 points, and Arizona sat Fitzgerald for the whole second half just to get ready for the playoffs, and that was his best hope. I'm like, oh, so unfair for the kid, man. Like, he got beat by week 17 football, basically. But anyways, that'll be interesting to see. But Seattle, yeah, that's going to be the end of the road for Teddy Bridgewater, unfortunately. But we'll talk about that. Hey, how about the Buckeyes, real quick, while I've still got you? They took care of business, although Joey Bosa didn't get to see much of it on the field, out early with that targeting call, which by the letter of the law, I totally get why they did what they did. I mean, obviously, you would hate to see a marquee guy out of a game so early like that. Didn't hurt the Buckeyes at the end of the day. And talk to me a bit about the victory for the Bucs the other day. Big Ten did not fare too well, but the Buckeyes did all right.
Yeah, well, the Big Ten was 5-5 in bowls, but the marquee games, the two teams that played in the Big Ten championship game, both got steamrolled. Iowa just got crushed, and of course Michigan State embarrassed the conference in the semifinal. But the Buckeyes. And let me just go to the Joey Bosa hit. First of all, Bosa in that half a quarter that saw the Buckeyes build a 14-0 lead and intercepted the ball on Notre Dame on the next series on the play that he got ejected on their way to a complete blowout. And Bosa had already played a fabulous game to that point. He had several tackles. He was just throwing his weight around. He was just dominating the line of scrimmage in the game to that point. I watched the game again last night after I got home from the Browns game because I needed something to pick me up. So I watched the whole Fiesta Bowl last night for the second time. And the thing that jumped out at me was how dominant Bosa was in that first quarter before the ejection. Jerry, I think they're going to have to do something about the targeting rule. I mean, first of all, you can't hit a quarterback high. So, you can't hit him in the head. You can't go helmet to helmet when you're charging him just after he releases the ball. So what do? You drop your head. You hit him a little bit lower than the head. You can't hit him in the head, so you drop down and you hit him in the chest instead. And obviously I understand the difference between, they always say to look at what you hit, to have your eyes forward or put your face mask in his chest instead of the crown of your helmet in his chest. But I did think that the targeting rule was meant to avoid concussions and helmet-to-helmet shots. And throughout the year, that's what it's been. It's when you have helmet-to-helmet shots, that's what is cause for ejection. If you want to call a spearing call, there's really no longer a spearing penalty per se in college football because they're sort of replaced and superseded by the targeting rule. But, if spearing is a penalty, then let spearing be a penalty and charge a guy, penalize a guy 15 yards for it. But I don't think it should be an ejectable offense. If you're not making a helmet-to-helmet hit, let's face it, and the whole problem with the targeting thing anyway is that when two athletes that are everybody is within a few inches of 6'1", running at high speed and colliding with each other, your helmets are going to hit together. Your helmets are going to collide with each other when two grown men hit each other running at high speeds. You have to judge intent and you have to judge it in the spur of the moment. But just as far as that goes, the rules now, especially NFL rules, where you can't hit a quarterback low, you can't hit a quarterback high, and you can't touch the quarterback's helmet. And so where can you hit him? Well, you have to hit him in the midsection. But if you hit him with the wrong part of your helmet, well, that's a penalty too. Yep. I went back to Jack Lambert's famous quote, "Let's just put skirts on him." After that Bosa hit, to me it was excessive to throw him out. And yes, I'm a partisan Buckeye fan, and he had dominated the game, and it was a big game, and you don't want to see it, especially a guy's last game of his career.
Right.
Get thrown out in the first quarter for a very, very questionable call by an SEC set of officials, by the way, for whom there's no love lost.
Your favorite officials, yeah,
in the SEC. So all those factors, it was an eyebrow raiser. I heard, I didn't see the quote, but I heard that Bob Golick was on the case this morning on Mike Golick, I should say, on the case this morning, talking about he objected to the whole targeting rule and objected to the ejection of Bosa from that game specifically, and I just felt terrible for the young man in his final game ever as a Buckeye after a great career to get tossed on what was really kind of a bogus thing, even if it met the letter of the rule. Certainly the spirit of the rule.
Right.
It didn't appear vicious or intent to injure. And it wasn't helmet to helmet, and it's just all around. It's just a shame that his college career had to end like that.
And what you just said, it's the automatic part of it there to me that gets it, because you want to go by the letter of the law, that's fine, but then you simply huddle up. It shouldn't take nothing but a conversation of officials. Hey, there was clearly the spirit. There was no intent that wasn't maliciously intended. There was no reason. I mean, to me, that should be a judgment. At least unhandcuff the officials and let them make the judgment call. If they huddle up and they go, hey, we got to toss him from the game, then that's something else we can argue about later. But at least then they can circle up and go, hey, there was no intent. We're going to hit him with the 15 yards and the unsportsmanlike and continue on because, it's his last game. And I know that that's an individual set of circumstances, but it's a star player in his last game. It's one of the reasons people are watching, just saying there's one of the reasons. And that should have been there. I'm with you, but luckily it didn't play any part in the game. But it's a damn shame, and I hate that it's that automatic like that, especially as this thing goes and gets. I mean, I don't know where the game of football. Totally off the subject, but kind of on it where we're going here. Like you talk about how you can't avoid these certain types of the helmets hitting and things like that. I was talking to little Jerry in the car the other day, and we were talking about the concussion movie with Will Smith. And a buddy of mine had actually seen a documentary with the actual guy who Will Smith portrays in the movie, and it was like a 2 or 3 hour documentary about that was basically the story behind the movie that they ended up putting together. And I've seen that now as well too. I am in my head trying to figure out a way that the sport of football survives a decade, because I'm looking at just the way things are continuing to go. And you would think it's impossible, but there's a lot of things that disappear that you thought could never go away that eventually become a part of yesterday's lore. And you would think that $1 billion sport can't be that, but I'm not talking about what I want, because I don't in any way agree with it, but I just see the way things are going. How do you avoid these contacts? How do you avoid the injuries? How do you avoid the collisions? you don't unless you avoid the sport in general. I don't know 10, 15 years from now if the NFL exists in the form that it does today.
Yeah, you're right. And I think really the only thing that can kill or could kill the sport would be that event that we all dread in our heart of hearts, and that is an on-field fatality, which could happen. And frankly, I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. And I think if and when it does happen in the next few years, that it has a very real potential to kill the sport entirely. But so you just hold your breath and you hope that it doesn't happen. But every day you see hits on the football field that have the potential to snap a guy's neck and just have him be DOA. I just pray that doesn't happen. But it does have the potential to kill the sport. But I do think that officials of college football especially are going to have to go back and revisit this targeting thing, try to get some consistency to it, try to hopefully limit it to helmet-to-helmet shots, because this idea that you can get thrown out for hitting a guy in the gut, in the rib cage with your helmet, when you got to go horizontal to tackle him. You're coming after him, and you've got to go horizontal.
I know.
Well, when you go horizontal, your head's the first thing that's going to hit him. There's hardly any way around that.
I know.
That's what happened with Bosa. And you can't hit him helmet to helmet, so you drop your head down lower, and then you get thrown out anyway. So I just think they're going to have to revisit that and put some teeth in it, but also make it consistent and hopefully limit it to malicious kind of hits or hits that have the potential to seriously injure someone.
Absolutely, Dan. I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, all of this talk here, Buckeyes victorious in the Fiesta Bowl. One coach that we know won't be going to the Cleveland Browns is Urban Meyer. I thought it was funny. He admitted after everybody speculated a couple weeks ago, apparently Jimmy Haslam may have been making some calls behind the scenes a few weeks ago, because Urban came out and said, yes, I did get called by an NFL team, and I politely let them know that I was not interested. I have no doubt that was the Browns. And what does that say? Because according to the rumors anyways, there was a percentage of the team involved in there. Even that wasn't enough to sway Urban. He said, no, you know what? I'm good, man. I own 100% of the hearts of Buckeyes fans, and I think that's worth more than 5% of the Browns. But anyways, Urban not going anywhere, but there will be some coaching staff changes and some things as always happens here, and roster changes. I know Cardell said that he's still, as figured, going out in the draft. What do you think he did, by the way, to his draft status this year? Where do you think Cardell Jones now compared to a year ago when we were talking about if he would have come out right off of that run? Where do you think he falls now?
I'm going to say that some coach and some general manager will look at the raw material, at the athletic ability, and say, I'm going to roll the dice in the third round with Cardale Jones, or I'm going to roll the dice in the fourth round. I think that's probably where it's going to be.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to say, okay, I can work with this. I also think that maybe most of those front office people in the NFL are going to wait until they see how Cardale does on the Wonderlic. Because after all, as he said in his own words, we ain't come to play school.
Here for school.
So, I think we'll have to see how people feel Cardale will handle the intellectual aspects of playing quarterback in the NFL, and see if they think he's up to the task there. I don't know anything about that, but I think people will look long and hard at whether they think he can handle the mental aspects of it.
All right, man. We'll talk about it here Wednesday. When you come back, we'll talk about some NFL playoffs and look ahead. And, hey, you know what, Browns fans? You know who's not looking for a coach? The Cavs. They've got one. Cavs are doing well. They play tonight. I mean, that's what I said yesterday. As soon as the Browns game was over, I looked up and said, hey, Cavs play tomorrow, and everybody was in a good mood again. So, it is what it is, man. And at least we've got them to guide us through the winter.
That's right. And as far as the Buckeyes go, Jerry, we're just – over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see how many of these juniors are going to take off. Right now, it looks like the Buckeyes next year are going to return their starting quarterback, 2 of their 5 offensive linemen, and that's all. Because 3 linemen are gone. 3 linemen are gone. The tight end's gone. The running back's gone. Michael Thomas is gone, although he hasn't announced yet, but he will. So the offense is going to be completely new. And the good news is the Buckeyes are loaded, but they're going to be very, very green. They had absolute studs ready to just plug into those offensive line spots. Great running back and Mike Weber coming in. Defense is going to be similarly gutted. I mean, Darren Lee already said he's gone. Most of the defensive line, you've got Hubbard and Tyquan Lewis back, but and your inside linebacker Raekwon McMillan is back, but everything else is going to be pretty much up in the air. I'm hopeful that they can hold on to Eli Apple and Von Bell, get those guys to come back for another year, but I'm not optimistic about that. So it's going to be a real exodus going on from Columbus, and Buckeyes have a real tough schedule next year, including going to Oklahoma and traveling to Michigan State and Penn State and Wisconsin, and it's going to be brutal next year. They'll be talented, but they will be very, very green.
For sure. You and I talked about that at the beginning of this season. It was, let's see how far this can ride, because there will be a lot of people heading out of town here at the end of this one. And
right.
Like you said, they're loaded. It's just an inexperienced deal. And then
the talent is there. They've been recruiting like crazy over the last 3 years, and there's a whole bunch of talented kids that no one's ever heard of, or the casual fan hasn't heard of. And they'll be, they have very, very good talent, but experience is where they're going to hurt, and it's going to have to come fast, because they play, even the early part of the season, they play Bowling Green, they play Tulsa. They're not, bowl teams, and then they go to Oklahoma in Game 3. So it doesn't get, it starts out tough and gets tougher as the season goes along. But I think Urban's going to show up with a group of Buckeyes next year on Saturdays.
Yeah, ready to play some ball, man. I'll tell you, too, Cavs, as we wrap it up, you and I hadn't talked since right before Christmas. Of course, they had the Warriors game and then bounced back from that tough loss there, which I came out with a lot of good out of the Warriors game myself, personally, because defensively...
Me too, because they couldn't have played any worse, and they lost by 6 points.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Defensively, they played well. Offensively, they were horrid, and they still were within a 1 or 2 possession game most of the way through there. That's defensively, right. You had the best performance any team's had all season against Golden State, and I feel that as they continue to play together, that's what I was going to ask you. They've had a couple of games just now starting to get the band back together. They rolled. I didn't even see it. I watched the highlights afterward. As a matter of fact, I was coming back from my match Saturday night, and the TV in the bar adjacent to the building, the post-game show was just starting. They steamrolled Orlando the other day. What do you think about the first little bit here of seeing these guys back together? Clearly, still have some chemistry deal to get together, but where are you at with the Cavs?
The most encouraging thing to me, Jerry, is LeBron's jump shot looks better. He's been putting a lot of work on it. I've heard him interviewed about it. The last 2 games, he's been shooting the ball sweet. They went out 40-15 over Orlando the other day. That game was over in the first quarter, and a lot of it was, and even the previous game when LeBron had 34 and I think only 3 or 4 assists, he made it a point to say, okay, my team, I'm going to score. I haven't been shooting well. I'm going to start shooting. And he came out and he hit a bunch of jump shots early. He did the same thing in the Orlando game. People were commenting all over the place. And I watched basically the whole Orlando game. His jump shot looks so much better. Then you've got the Shumpert factor. Then you've got the Kyrie factor. You're right. It's all come together. They're just starting to get a feel for each other, and the new rotations that are involved with Kyrie on the floor and Shumpert back on the floor. So, it's exciting to watch, but it was great to see LeBron go back to being a reliable scorer with the jumper. He can always go to the rack, and he'll continue to do that. But he needs to have the jump shot, including the 3-ball, and that seems to be coming around. And LeBron says it's because he's been practicing relentlessly on it, and his work is starting to pay off. So that, to me, is what jumped out at me as the thing that's most encouraging about this recent run.
Yeah, and the other thing, and I don't know how much of this plays into it or not, but they made the switch there after the Golden State game to Tristan instead of Mozgov in the starting lineup, and they've won 3 straight since they made the switch, and they're 5-1 now this year when Tristan starts instead of Mozgov. David Blatt said that may switch again later. It just depends on how things go, but I don't know. Do you think that's a function of the teams that they've played, or I mean, they do play differently, clearly a different style.
Well, and I've heard people say this, and I can't say I'm enough of a student of X and O's of basketball to notice it myself, but I'm reacting to what other people that I respect have said. And there are a lot of people who think that Mozgov is not the same player this year that he was a year ago, that he has not been playing as well. Certainly he doesn't appear to have the same kind of touch around the hoop. He doesn't appear to have the same kind of aggressiveness on the offensive end. Maybe he's just not touching the ball enough. I don't know. But a lot of people, and even defensively, people are saying he does not appear to be the same guy that we saw last year, and maybe David Blatt sees the same thing and says, well, we're going to make a move. So maybe it's not so much chemistry or anything necessarily positive about Tristan Thompson, but just that they see Mozgov not giving him what he was giving him a year ago. And again, I have to disclaim all that by saying I'm not expert enough to make that observation on my own.
Well, to be honest, I've heard that from guys in camp since training camp. He was slow, like he's had trouble coming back from the injury, and it's been bothering him in the early part of the season there. So I do think there's a lot to that, and that's something to keep in mind because he did have surgery in the off season. So not everybody comes back. Everybody comes back in different ways. So that's something.
Well, hopefully they give him time and
they can
limit his minutes and get. They have the luxury of being able to do that, and Verajao can help out a little bit there too, and they're easing him back in. And typically, he's only getting about 5 to 7 minutes a game, and I don't know what his plus minus when he's on the floor is, but since it's usually in garbage time, you probably shouldn't put a lot of stock in that. But hopefully, over the course of the year, they'll be able to get Andy back to where he's making a real contribution in minutes that matter, and taking some of the heat off Mozgov, maybe.
Absolutely. By the way, talking about numbers that matter, here's my number that matters for the Cavs right now. Third in the league defensively in points allowed, 94.5 points allowed. That's pretty good in today's NBA for sure. And that's why the Cavs are 22-9. And as you said, luxury to sit back and hopefully get Mozgov rolling back again. And I looked at the 3 games that they've won here. You got the Suns, the Nuggets, the Magic, all varying levels of competitiveness. But to me, all 3 teams that are a level below of where the Cavaliers are. So I don't know that the 3-game winning streak is necessarily indicative of anything with who's in the starting lineup as much as a function of the teams they play. The Raptors team that they're playing tonight, that's a team that beat them earlier in the season. So that's a team that can play. I like Toronto, but we'll see what the Cavaliers can do.
And am I right, Jerry, that there is no Monday Night Football?
Yeah, there would be no Monday Night Football tonight. The final game was last night.
The regular season over. So, the Cavs going to be the only game in town, and that's where I'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. There would be no function for them to play a Monday Night Football game, especially when you've got the Saturday night, the Saturday and Sunday wild card. This is, by the way, my favorite football weekend of the year. I remind everybody when it's like March Madness when we get all the games going and you get a double dose of wild card games on Saturday and Sunday. So
I love that. Wild card weekend is one of the best days of 2 days of the year. And of course, either Wednesday or next Monday we can preview Alabama Clemson and talk about that and get deeper into these NFL playoffs.
Absolutely. There's a national championship and so much more. So we'll talk about a lot of this stuff, Dan, when we come back Wednesday, and we'll preview the NFL playoffs. 4 big wild card weekend games coming up. And, hey, there you may be right. I see Bruce in the chat room dropping the dime about Tom Coughlin being out in New York, so perhaps that has officially dropped down since we've been on the air. But
all right. Well, hey, we'll get back at it on Wednesday. It's always fun being with you, and you have a great one.
You got it. My man, Dan Wismar. Happy New Year. We'll see you on Wednesday, my friend. That's Dan Wismar. You guys can check him out on everybodyhatescleveland.com and here every week on the Sports Fix, Mondays and Wednesdays, joining us. Long, extended conversation. Let's take our final break of the day. When we come back, we'll talk about the Cavs and the Raptors. They've got a game going on tonight. Update you on the news of the day that's gone down while we've been on the air here. Set the stage for what's to come on Wednesday. We'll talk a little Monsters hockey and more as we wrap things up, going to work on the first episode of the Sports Fix in 2016. And I'll be right back wrapping it up next. Don't go anywhere. Still more Sports Fix to come.
When I rock the mic, you got to like the way I operate. I make miracles happen just from rapping. I'm so lyrically.
The Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Intelligent talk.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good.
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
These guys must be on the wrong station.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get him away!
Hey, boo!
The Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd. Football season is party season at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. And no matter who you root for, everyone wins at Harry Buffalo. Every Saturday is Coors Light College Football Saturday with $6 pitchers, 4 bottles for $10, and the Buckeyes in full HD. Every Sunday, all the Browns action with Bud Light beer specials and $10 hair of the dog pitchers.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Plus, every Monday night, catch the Monday Night Football action with some of your favorite Browns players. Football season is most definitely party season, and your headquarters is Harry Buffalo North Olmsted all winter long. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Hey, everybody, listen up.
Listen up, guys.
Hey, guys, listen up. No one should ever hit a woman.
Not their wife, not their girlfriend, not their date. No woman should have to fear violence.
Especially not from someone they know and trust.
But that's the reality for too many women.
We have to change it.
It's up to each of us, because even one is too many.
Violence against women hurts all of us. Growing up, I was ashamed and afraid of my father when he abused my mom.
The worst abuse of power is when a man raises his hand to hurt a woman. We all have to take responsibility. So if you see someone threatening a woman, step up, speak out, and get help.
Dating violence hurts all of us. So step up and help end it. Because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many. One is too many.
End the violence. Because it's wrong.
Because one is too many.
Here we go, bring it on in. It's time now. It's all city. We got to do it for them, dog. We got to do it for Cleveland. They're waiting on us.
Every single night, every single practice, every single game, we got to give it all we got because they're going to ride with us. Everything that we do on this floor was because of this city. We owe them. We're going to grind for this city. They're going to support us, man, but we got to give it all back to them. We get it done. The toughness that we have on the court is going to come from this city. Everybody, the whole city of Cleveland. That's what it's all about. It's time to bring them something special. Let's go. Bring it on in, everybody. Let's go. Hard work on 3. Together on 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. It's all us. Cleveland on 3. 1, 2, 3.
The Sports Fix. Who are you?
James Bond.
Good evening, Mr. Bond. I've been expecting your call. Allow me to introduce you to my little friend, the hold button. This is why Yoda only handles the phone calls on the Sports Fix. Please call him or we are doomed.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. J-Rocc wrapping things up here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. Thanks to you guys for being with us. As always, thanks to Dan Wismar for joining us. And as Bruce and I was seeing here in the chat room, he mentioned right before we went to break, and indeed, it is blowing up all over the interwebs right now. The New York Giants have apparently informed Tom Coughlin, that he will not be coming back as the head coach of the New York Giants after 12 seasons. And I'll tell you what, I have instantly found the guy that I want to come in and coach the Cleveland Browns. My son and I were talking about that yesterday. And he was like, that's the kind of guy the Browns want. And I'm like, well, he's not leaving. They're not going to fire him. And if he quits, he won't be quitting to come to Cleveland. But apparently he did not leave of his own volition. This was a New York Giants decision. As the word breaking out is that Coughlin has informed his coaching staff that he will not be retained by the New York Giants. So for first time in over a decade, the Giants will be searching for a new head coach, and there's somebody right there that's the kind of guy that a team like the Browns needs. But that's exactly the kind of guy that won't come here. He's not having the ridiculous tomfoolery that goes down in Cleveland, but that would be a guy I would take right there. He's 169 and 146 as a head coach in the NFL over the past few 12 seasons, 12-7 in the playoffs. And his career record as a coach in the NFL, 181 and 153, which is about 180 games more than the average Cleveland Browns coach wins in his tenure as a coach. As well, been to a couple of Super Bowls and has a little ring on the finger. As you know, that's a guy that is a leader of men, and that's the kind of guy that a team like the Browns needs. Discipline. We're talking about a man. This is Mangini with the ring, with the pedigree that comes with it, with even more of a resume and even more cachet that comes with it. There's all reasons why he will not be in the consideration at all for your Cleveland Browns, but those are all reasons why that would be the one and only phone call that I would be making right now if I was Jimmy Haslam. Is, hey, did you quit or did they let you go? Because if you quit, I wish you the best. If they let you go, I got a spot for you to land right here in Cleveland. But anyway, so that is official. 12 years, and out he goes as the head coach of the New York Giants. Browns coaching search is off and running, and of course, that's going to be a lot of fun to laugh at and follow as we go along here. In all seriousness, hey, who knows, man? I mean, even the sun shines on a dog's butt every once in a while. Maybe they'll accidentally trip over their own 2 feet and get it right. I don't expect that, but we'll see where they go. We'll see what the Cavaliers do tonight. The hell with the Browns. The Browns aren't playing football for a while, but, well, the jokes do write themselves because you could say they haven't played football for a while. But anyways, Browns aren't playing, but the Cavs are. As Dan and I were talking about, Cavs, Toronto at it tonight. Should be a good one. One of the premier matchups tonight in the Eastern Conference. 7 p.m. tip-off. Cavaliers hosting the Toronto Raptors. Raptors coming in at 21-14. Cavaliers defending home turf 22-9 and coming in tonight on a 3-game winning streak. Toronto would have been doing the same. They wrapped up a homestand yesterday, and I saw the tail end of this one for myself. They dropped a tough one, 115-113 to the Bulls. Jimmy Butler, 40 points in the second half. He was en fuego, as they like to say. 40 points in the second half. He broke a record held by a guy you may recognize, the name Michael Jordan. Jordan had the Bulls record previously for the Bulls points and a half. He had a 39-point half back in, I want to say it was 86. I don't know, whatever it was. Point being, it was broken by Jimmy Butler yesterday, who had 40 points. As Dwayne Casey said, we could not stop him no matter what we tried yesterday. So that breaks the streak for them, and now Toronto looks to start a new one at the expense of the Cavs. As Dan mentioned before, last couple of games, LeBron James is definitely shooting better than he was. He was statistically actually not only at the worst shooting start of the season for LeBron James, but counting shots outside the paint. If you eliminate all the shots in the paint, LeBron was dead last in shooting percentage outside the paint in the NBA to start the season for all starters around the NBA. So it was not just a bad start for LeBron, but it was just a bad start shooting-wise in general. And you know what? I'll take that and be 22-9 and just now getting Kyrie. I mean, that's fine. That's the luxury of the depth, and hopefully we'll continue to watch that process go. As we mentioned, Kyrie, no more sitting out on the back end of back-to-backs here, as he's now expected to play in games going forward, as he's now had 5 back since he's come back. He skipped a couple of the back-to-backs. Shumpert as well. The whole crew getting back into it. Mozgov switched out, as we mentioned before, from the starting lineup. Tristan will be starting tonight. Cavaliers 5-1 with him in there. It'll be a fun game tonight to watch. Should be interesting to see what the Cavaliers do. Remember, Toronto knocked off the Cavs earlier in the season, but the Cavs were incredibly shorthanded in that previous matchup. No Kyrie, no Shumpert, no Mozgov, no Delly, and the Raptors were able to hang on for a 4-point victory over the Cavs back at that time. Let's see if the Cavs return the favor here tonight. Look to go to 23-9 on the season. Then they hit the road here. They've got, 5 straight on the road. Next time they're back at the Q, 2 weeks from today, against the Golden State Warriors. That's a good one to look forward to as the schedule heats up and the wintertime rolls on around the NBA. Cavaliers, Raptors tonight, 7 p.m. tip-off from the Q. Lake Erie Monsters, speaking of warming things up at the Q, we'll try to get Tony Brown back in the rotation and back on the show. It was a tough New Year's beginning for the Monsters. Dropped a couple over the weekend on the road trip. Milwaukee knocked them off Saturday 3-1. Chicago dumped the Monsters 5-2 yesterday. They've got a day off today before they continue the road trip back at it at Milwaukee, trying to get some payback for that 3-1 loss on Saturday. That game will be tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern time zone tip-off for that one, or puck drop tip-off. Whenever I mix the sports, I always start to mix the analogies that go with it. So again, we'll try to get Tony Brown in on that one. Monsters, still a good start to the season for them overall, even though, as we mentioned, a tough stretch here for them as I wait for the standings to load. We'll update you on that. But as I said, Monsters dropped a couple here looking to break that snap on the road. They've fallen from 3rd to 5th in the division as they're now 17, 12, 2-2. Their difference in the percentage of points has dipped with this losing streak that they've been on. They were at about, I think, 65% of points available. They've dropped down to 57% of the points available, which is the new way that they rate the playoff teams, because teams are going to play different games based on the division that they're in because of the quirks of the new AHL schedule. Overall in the conference, Monsters now slipping into that little more dangerous area as they're now in the bottom half of the conference. They are 7th as we check in today. Still a lot of season to play, but the Monsters definitely want to snap out of this losing streak that they've been on here and try to right the ship as they continue. As I said, on the road, chance to do that on Tuesday as the Monsters now 3-game losing streak. They dropped the first one of the road trip to Toronto, won against Toronto on the 29th as the Monsters had a 2-game winning streak over my birthday weekend. I was thinking, hey, nice little celebration. Overall, it's been a tough one. Monsters, since mid-December, since they were in second place, have stumbled. They lost 4 in a row, won 2, lost 3 in a row. So they have lost 7 of their last 9 coming into tomorrow's matchup with Milwaukee. We'll get Tony on the show and we'll catch up with him on the Monsters. They have a long road trip in front of them. This is by far the longest of the season. It is 3, 6, 9, 10 games in duration. Game 4 tomorrow. They don't return back to the Q until, the 20th of January. And so both teams out as the Q has some events in, and that will keep the Cavs and the Monsters out. Longest road trip of the season for both teams, actually. I think it's 5 games for the Cavs, and here are the Monsters in the middle of this 10-game road stretch, by far the longest of the season. I think the only other even half that length, they've got late March, early April. Monsters have a 5-game road trip. Other than that, that's it. So we'll check in with Tony later on. Good luck to the Monsters tomorrow. They'll have played that game by the time we're back on Wednesday. Dan will be back in the house. We'll catch back up with you guys, talk some Cavs. We'll preview the NFL playoffs as there are 4 very good matchups on tap for this weekend, and should be a lot of fun. We'll talk about that. We'll look ahead as well, talk some Buckeyes as things fall out. We'll get you the latest update to the minute on your Cleveland Browns head coaching search and the fun discussions that should come with that. Tribe continuing, hot stove. Can you believe? I think, what was it, Bruce? Less than 40? Right around 40 days until spring training starts. We're, 90 or so until opening day. That's the new countdown that's on as we start heading towards baseball season. We'll talk about some of that, too, later this week as well. Don't forget, we're back in the swing. We'll get Mike Brandenburry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com back on the show. Friday, we'll catch back up one last time with BJ Riddell, Fantasy Football for Winners, season recap, and more. But Wednesday, we're back live. Be here with us. Dan Wismar is back in the house. We're talking NFL playoffs, NBA action, latest with the Browns head coaching search, and more. So be back here. Same bad time, same bad chat. There we go. 44 days till pitchers and catchers report to 44 days. That's nothing. That's a blink of an eye. That's 3 naps for Justin Gilbert because he's a hard sleeper. Boom, just like that. Indians are back in action. Until then, we've got the Cavs to get us through. They play tomorrow, and we'll talk about it Wednesday. And we'll see you guys live here at noon across the Sports Fix Radio Network. Same bat time, same bat channel. We love you, Cleveland, beyond. Wherever you cats are listening to the show, welcome back. Welcome here. Whatever it is, it's a new year, and I love it. Let's spend it together. Coming back Wednesday live right here on the Sports Fix.
We know. Tuning in to Bravo, yeah, you hear me everywhere, but it's only one of me. Let me make that very clear. Yeah, I'm from that terminal. You can see the lake from here. Faith in my teams, we keep getting closer every year. But we got the king, though, so hopefully we overcome. Yes, I have a dream, and I know I ain't the only one. Modell tried to steal my heart, but we brought it back. Thanks to Cleveland Clinic, now they call them kids to cardiac. Rock Cars, Science Center, Tower City, all of that. Warehouse District, Euclid Corridor, and all the flat. You know that I'm a Tribes fan, and I love Slimans. Crockett Park's the perfect place for me to spend some time in. Baby, this is Cleveland. It is so much more to us. You can even go to Severance Hall to see an orchestra. Hey.
We rep our city. Blue lights separate the crime from the gritty. We're sick-fitted. Hood pass over any city that we visited. When you're from Cleveland, survival's a must on these streets. We hustle, don't sleep. Out here in Cleveland, Cleveland, Cleveland.
You know that I'm from
long nights, cold weather, it ain't nothing pretty. So much hate up in this city, bitty city. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Put your hands up in the air, everybody say yeah, yeah, yeah.